Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Another Halloween Schlock and Awe, the double feature podcast that celebrates all movies from the slimy to the ghoulish. As always, I'm Lindsay Wilkins. And this week, we are going to be looking at, well, we're going live with a double of Halloween Resurrections. I was always going to have to do a Halloween movie I didn't like at some point. And WNUF Halloween Special. And my guest is a fantastic one. He has a penchant, and we'll put him through some of the even worse movies than Halloween Resurrection, just for purely everyone else's entertainment, and also is actually a big lover of the found footage genre in general. That is, of course, co-host of the Super Marcy Network. It is Bede Jermyn. Hey, how's it going?
I'm good, thanks, Lindsay. How are you?
Good. Sorry, I did call you a purveyor of weird, horrible movies, but you do have a. It's not a monthly column, but you will do live tweet and all from the live movie.
I haven't done that column in ages, and I feel really bad. It's just I've been so caught up with so much stuff. Yeah. I've been forgetting to do it. But I suppose, because one of my last few that I did, because I did my 100th edition of Bad Movie Tweetathon, which was the column. I did it on The Room, and I kept sort of going back and forth whether I should make that the final edition of the column, because, I mean, you can't get any bigger than The Room. But I have done a few since then. I think I did one on the Italian horror film Burial Ground, which is just...
That's insane. Entertaining as all hell.
It is. And also, one of the last ones I did was Diana the Musical.
I did see you tweet that, and I was like, oh, Bede, why are you doing that to yourself? I mean, sometimes you will pick a movie that I'm like, oh, that is bad, but is generally fun, which I think is, you have said before, you're a huge fan of Troll 2, and then you will choose something like the Diana the Musical, and I'm like, why? Why would you just do that to yourself?
Well, to be fair on my end, most of the time I put a poll out and I let people decide what my next pick is going to be, and that was the one they chose for the column.
Why? Why, people?
Exactly. And the worst part is I had to watch that movie twice, because I couldn't just watch it going in blind. I needed to watch it in prep beforehand to at least have an idea what I'm getting into, and also try to come up with jokes for that column. Yeah. And I'm like, that was the longest week. Watching that movie twice in 1 week.
Oh my God. Though you and Marcy also do Tubi Tuesdays, which is usually a commentary on a movie that you find on Tubi, which again, the depths of depravity that you found on that. Thing. So this is... I am saying this because the reason why I wanted to do Resurrections was because even though there are movies like Halloween 6 and, say, H2O, which do get bagged on, I am general fans of these movies. And when you love a franchise, you have to love the good and the bad. And so I decided to choose a Halloween movie that I am generally not a fan of, and that is Resurrections. Even though I think this movie is interesting and there's a lot to talk about, at the same time, it's going to be me going... Why did they do that to Jamie Lee Curtis? Why did she ask to be killed off? I mean, you don't trust the Weinsteins with that shit. Why? But so I think this is going to be a really interesting discussion, and I will try and keep instead of just bagging on it. But thank you so much for coming on for this double. I cannot wait to get especially into WNUF. I'm going to get that mixed up at some point.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm pretty much when you got reached out to me and say, oh, do you want to do an episode on Halloween Resurrection, I was immediately, yes. Because that's the thing. For me, this is, we'll go into it further very soon, but it is definitely the worst entry in the Halloween franchise, despite what anyone says. But there is things to talk about. It's definitely one of those movies that is so wrong on every level, but yet there are things that you can't help but talk about, like how wrong it is.
Yes. No, that is absolutely true. And then WNUF is just a whole kind of takes that premise and this just stretches it in so much into kind of what's happening. This is going to be a real fascinating one. But before we get into it, you're about to, I don't think you've dropped your first episode yet, launch a new show, just you, Bede versus the Living Dead.
Indeed. Well, that I haven't even recorded the first episode yet, but I will be. Hopefully, it has already been recorded by the time this episode of your show drops. So I'm doing a brand new solo podcast. Don't worry, I'm still doing all the shows with Marcy, just in case that people are wondering. This is going to be my own little solo show in which I'm going to do a deep dive and discuss every remake, re-edit, homage, reimagining, unofficial sequel, and so much more of George A. Morero's 1968 horror classic, Night of the Living Dead. And not just in terms of films, but across all media as well. And the thing is, like, I'm going to do an introduction episode before the official episode drops where I go into a little why I'm doing this show, because I'm just kind of a while back when I think it was a recent new version of the film came out. It was from last year. It was in the completely shot-for-shot animated version of the film, and it had like a big all-star voice cast. It had like Catherine Isabel, Dule Hill, Josh Duhamel, Nancy Travis, and so many others attached to voice it. And I was just so fascinated by that film. And after I watched it and realized, oh, this is not good at all, but it sent me kind of down the rabbit hole of all things Night of the Living Dead. Like, I knew a couple little things over the years, like, the 1990 remake or the 2006 3D remake with Sid Haig. And then there was like another animated film from the mid-2010s. But those were the ones I knew. But then when I sort of deep dived into the whole thing, I realized there were so many different versions of Night of the Living Dead, whether it be remakes or re-edits or just or unofficial like follow-ups, like sequels and prequels to that film. And I was just so fascinated, and I thought to myself, there is a podcast here. Oh yeah. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a little podcast that goes into all of them, and I've already got my episode list already sorted out. So I have, and there is a ton. And but at the same time, though, I'm very excited to talk about these because I know it's just going to be fascinating just seeing so many different variations of the one film that are out there.
Yeah, because Night of the Living Dead is a established classic. It is considered a horror masterpiece. It is influenced every single thing that came after it, considering, and also not the fact that it started its own genre, but the fact that it's public domain means that people can play around with it. And it's going to be so fascinating because I can't wait to go on it, especially because I just chose one. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm getting into with this episode. So it's just been like going, yeah, you're surprised I chose this one? I am too. No, but it's going to be fascinating because I think the way you can play around with all kinds of media with this thing. And Night of the Living Dead started a franchise when it was just a guy just trying to make a movie. It wasn't, which was already a hard thing to do anyway, but to actually try and then it just spawned this other kind of unwieldy thing. And when you're sort of saying it's the animated, it's the reshoots, it's the overdubbing, it's the overseas remakes, I was even trying to get you to do episodes on movies that play it on in the background.
Well, that was me. That I never even thought about that aspect, but now that when you told me
that was after 3 wines.
Yeah, it was after 3 wines, but then I was like, you know what, that would be actually an interesting kind of little mini section of the podcast.
Yeah. Because it is, it's famously in a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah. Like, I even thought about, this was like even a while ago, I even thought about doing like a Twitter account where it was like Night of the Living Dead and this horror film and all that. And it would just be a collection, like but I think other people already did that out there on Twitter. So I thought, oh, well, people have already done it. There's no point in doing it. But maybe I might do it in podcast form. I'm not sure, but we shall see.
We shall see. No, the way that it's kind of, I don't know, I'm really looking forward to how you tackle the subject. It's going to be really, 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 really fascinating. And speaking of, this is actually a perfect segue. Speaking of getting into a movie that's, on the face of it, may be trying to look at how to reform Halloween into a different format, but it was just ends up feeling more like a massive cash grab, is, of course, Halloween Resurrection. I cannot believe Rick Rosenthal directed this one. Okay, curtains are opening. We're all going to be watching Halloween Resurrections. What is going to be your first trailer?
Well, for my first trailer for Halloween Resurrection, I had to really think back because, Halloween Resurrection, when it came out, was around the time when reality TV shows were becoming a thing in our world at the time. And I think for my first trailer, I decided to go with another horror film that came out during that period that also dealt with reality TV shows as well. And that, of course, is the 2002 British horror film, My Little Lie.
You know the number one cause of most stalkings? Forgetfulness. People forget to close their curtains.
Now I suddenly feel all on display.
I hate this house.
Take cover!
Creepy ass house.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Please.
You guys don't have to worry. You're much more likely to be killed by somebody you know.
There's someone upstairs.
First, no heat, then no food. You don't think this could be part of the game?
Yes, I had never actually heard of this movie when you told me off mic, and I had to quickly look it up. This looked absolutely fascinating. It looks like it's riffing on... Did you ever watch MTV's Real World back in the day?
I never saw an episode of Real World, but I always knew of it. But I have seen like all the other shows that have happened, like in its that came out afterwards. Because pretty much every reality show these days is some kind of form, in some kind of a unique form on the Real World type of format.
Yes, because this was huge. This is one I watched as a teenager, and it was always Real World Seattle or Real World New York or Real World Ohio. I don't know. And it was literally people living in a house. It wasn't like Big Brother when they got kicked out every week. They just stayed in there for 6 months with a camera crew following them around. And this is the premise of this movie, isn't it, slightly?
Yeah, well, it's kind of uses, because since Big Brother was sort of becoming a thing in the early 2000s, probably 2000, 2001 when that show came out, like at least when it started off in Europe and then spread everywhere else. Well, this show, this film, My Little Lie, it kind of uses the Big Brother kind of format to tell a psychological horror story where it's about these 6 people who are at this isolated mansion, and there's cameras everywhere filming their every move, and they have to stay in that mansion for 6 months for them to win $1 million. However, though, the downside is if one of them leaves, then no one wins the money.
So everyone has to stay in the house.
Yeah, and that's just only the first half. Later on in the story, a very young Bradley Cooper rocks up, claiming to have been lost in the woods. And so they invite him into the house. And then from what I remember, a lot of creepy stuff tends to happen. So, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen this film probably since it came out. So it has been 20 odd years since I've seen the film. But I do remember it quite well, at least little bits and pieces of it. But at the same time, though, it's probably one of the horror films that I remember most from that period in the early 2000s. And I think, well, like, Halloween Resurrections, as I stated before, it's one of so I'll say that again. And like I was saying before, like Halloween Resurrection, this was like one of the earliest horror films that I can remember that used reality television as the main thrust of its story.
Yeah, and they were starting to come a little bit slower, but they were starting to be there. I mean, we've got our Resurrections thing coming up, and it's kind of what horror does really well when it's trying to sort of go, hey, the kids like this thing, let's do this. It's like how during the pandemic, Host came out really quickly in 2020. It's like, okay, how do we make a movie with Zoom?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's one of the things about horror is like whenever something is happening in our world, whether it be like the dawn of reality television or the pandemic, like a lot of horror films tend to kind of jump on that scenario and to capitalize it. Like some do it really well and some unfortunately don't. But I think for me, My Little Lie, which is completely forgotten about by today's audiences, Like I said, I haven't seen the film since, when it was released. And I'm kind of curious to go back and rewatch it and just see how I feel about it. Because I can't remember exactly what I thought about the film, but I have a feeling I was probably kind of more in the middle of it at the time. But I can imagine I would probably appreciate it more now that I'm, 20 years later.
Yeah, it's fascinating to go back to these kind of movies that are so reflecting on their time and so kind of we're going to get into Dangertainment very, very soon, but it's doing that similar thing. So this feels like I had never heard of it, so I was just like looking at it going, so what is this movie? And I'm really looking forward to checking it out and I would mind checking this out because I think it's just an interesting time capsule for 2002.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So for my first trailer, I wanted to set a mood. Kind of what both doubles are doing. And so I am going to go for Amityville: The Possession from 1982.
The night of February 5th, 1976, George and Kathleen Lutz and their 3 children fled their home in Amityville, New York, and never returned. For them, the horror was over. Their living nightmare shocked audiences around the world in the Amityville Horror. But before them, another family lived in this house and were caught by the original evil. The Lutzes escaped with their lives, but the previous owners weren't so lucky.
Look at it! Oh, ours! Heavenly Father, bless our new home and watch over us as we become a part of this.
For the Montelli family, it was their dream house until it turned into a nightmare.
This is an insane movie. This is kind of like the origins of essentially it's meant to be the prequel to the Amityville of 1979, I think it was. And of course, this is one of the most insane, bonkers, sweaty, gross, disgusting, sleazy movies you'll ever see. And that's not including what Burt Young does in this movie. But that is going to be my first trailer.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie in ages. I think at the time when I was very young when I saw this film, I think I hated it at the time because it was so insane compared to the first Amityville film. But I have a feeling like knowing that my kind of sensibilities when it comes to kind of trashy horror films has kind of changed a lot since my mid-teens. I probably will appreciate this film a lot more on a second watch.
Oh, yeah, I think you absolutely will appreciate this more because this movie starts at 11 and then proceeds to go up there. I mean, there is this batshit crazy incest plot, and the siblings aren't even trying to get their hands off each other, which is the funniest thing, because it's kind of meant to be like, oh no, it's the demons in the house that's doing it. No, they were fucking each other way before this happened.
Exactly. I do remember the incest subplot.
It's kind of hard to forget.
Well, that's the thing that kind of was burnt into my memory was that entire subplot. And I know there are other insane things that happened in that film from what I remember, but that was kind of the one thing like that really stood out because you don't really see that many horror films use incest as the main element of a story. And this film does that in a lot of ways.
It really does. I mean, it's trying to kind of look at the original crime that happened in the Amityville house, supposedly, that led to the haunting of the actual Amity house, which was more of just a random, it wasn't a random crime, it was a familiar crime. So I think they're really trying to take a tiny aspect of the story and rumors that kind of, because of the supposed ghosts and everything like that, they ramped it up into this insane movie. And of course it's directed by an Italian. I did have his name. I will credit it later on. But it is just, yeah, it's a really fun 3 a.m. if you're dozing and you're waking up and you're like going, oh my God, Domino Damini is the director. So yes, they could only, from the 1980s, you could only get an Italian to make this movie.
And also, like, even though, the family in that film, and I guess one of the things that, being that this is one of the things I always remember a lot about this film is that being that, the family in the film are meant to be based on the DeFeo family, the ones who were...
Yes.
Who were originally murdered. But even though they did change their names in this film, but at the same time, though, given everything that happens in this movie, from what I remember, you can't help but feel like there is definitely a very gross kind of exploitative vibe throughout the whole film.
There really is, and that's why I kind of think it settles as a kind of a tone creator for this double. because both of the tragedies in this movie are made up, to the point, none of them, but they are kind of talking about how people will exploit a good tragedy, whether it's for Dangertainment or for the news. So, no, that is going to be my first trailer. Bede, what is going to be your second trailer?
Alrighty, for my second trailer, again, I'm going for a lesser-known film, but a more recent example of using reality TV shows as its kind of, I guess, aesthetic for its story. And that, of course, is the 2016 Australian horror film Scare Campaign.
Marcus said, the best pranks are the ones that go a little off script.
He only says that because nothing ever goes to script.
Shit, he's here.
Okay, time to move, people.
First positions.
Oh, yes, I'm all the nooks and crannies. All the hiding spots. All the places you should never, ever go.
Abs, you're on.
No, I don't like this, Marcus.
Someone set us up. We're all fucking stooges.
Yes.
Which is another little one that not that many people have seen, but I think that everyone should definitely go try to check this film out if they can. It's a very short film. It's only about 75 minutes long, but it does very well in its short running time. Basically, the entire premise of the show is that there's this group of filmmakers who do this TV show called Scare Campaign, which is basically a show where it's basically kind of a prank TV show to scare people. And so they do this show and they decide to do a bit of a scare this security guard at this building. But that's the thing, all the contestants, of course, have no idea that they're on a show and that all the scary things that are happening to them are all just fake. But the thing is, though, when they go to do this, like this whole scenario on the security guard, things go completely south very quickly, and they don't realize that the security guard is absolutely deranged and sets about going to kill all of them.
Yeah, this has got that real... I've only seen it once, and it was a little bit after it came out. So I need to go watch this again. And I remember, okay, cool, because I had a very different mindset on reality. On one reality, and I still don't like reality TV that much. And also on found footage. But I do love the idea of these kids thinking this is going to be funny and then choosing the wrong guy.
Yeah.
It's that's kind of great in that respect. But it's got this really kind of cool, almost kind of like very Australian kind of reality TV feel. And yes, Australian reality TV is a lot like American reality or wherever you're from reality TV, except the British Bake Off where everyone's nice to each other. But Australian reality TV likes to be mean, like really mean. Like it goes out of its way to be nasty. And this kind of captures that kind of thing. I think this is when they finally took Big Brother on the air until they've brought it goddamn back, and a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, it kind of captures that Australian reality TV nastiness. And there's a lot more to the story, of course, but we don't want to ruin what happens with the many twists and turns of the film. But it actually has, like, when I look back on that film, like it was written and directed by the Kane brothers, who also did 100 Bloody Acres. So this was their follow-up film to that. And this film has quite a big cast because it's got like Olivia de Jong, who recently played Priscilla Presley in Elvis. Also Cassandra McGrath from Wolf Creek. John Brumpton from The Loved Ones. Sigrid Fortin is also in this film as well. Like, it's got quite a number of well-known actors, and even some from, reality, I mean, not reality, but soap operas like Patrick Harvey and many others. Like, it is just a really fun little movie. Like, it does have a dark sense of humor throughout all of it, and also a very high body count and a lot of really cool gore. And it's just a fun movie, but it, like I said, it's definitely one to kind of go in without knowing too much, because there is a lot more to the plot than what we have already talked about so far. It really is. I do need to watch this again because, as I said, I think I was still in my, Australian movies are too gory, I don't like reality TV, and I don't like found footage. So I think I need to go back and revisit this movie because you're right, it does go into a lot of interesting places.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's just a lot of fun. And I think again, it's probably one of the best movies in my opinion that kind of deal with reality TV show and its plot.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is a fantastic trailer going in. Okay, my second trailer. Actually, I was going to choose original, but I think now I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go for the sequel.
Ooh.
But that is Unfriended Dark Web from 2018.
Yo! Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey. It is game night.
Ow, ow!
Are you ready for this? I got a new laptop.
Actually new.
There's a cyber cafe that I've been working at, and this computer was sitting in the lost and found for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Hang on, you stole someone's computer?
I didn't steal it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's messed up.
And I found this folder, it was hidden, and it automatically connects you to this thing.
Dude, this is dark web.
What's dark web? Part of the internet where no one can track you.
It's all about drugs, illegal IDs, even assassination for hire. Hey, yeah, the dark net is mostly about the bad guys.
And this computer's got videos on it, right? Check this out.
I really think you should stop.
Oh, God.
That looked way too real. I think that is real.
Guys, that's what they're trading.
Trade what?
All those videos.
We have to do something, and we have to do it now.
A movie I kind of like. Actually, both like Unfriended, both the Unfriended movies. The original is more supernatural, but this is literally a group of people get together on Zoom to have a Zoom party, which is so much more normal now than it ever was back in 2018. And things start happening from there. Someone's bought a new laptop, and I don't want to go more into it again because there's some really cool... It's kind of obvious where it goes, but at the same time, you're enjoying it because I think they actually do the scares really well, and considering it's all on a laptop. I watched this on my TV, which is probably not the best way to watch it, but I had a really good time thinking I was going to kind of hate watch it. You know, when you're watching a new independent movie that's about the internet, you always think you're going to hate it. And you're just going to hate watch. And from the late, well, I've already discussed this when we were talking about The Empty Man with The Curse of Michael Myers. But there was a spate of internet memes or how the internet works horror movies, and this is definitely one of them. But I kind of like most of them, actually. There's kind of few that I outright loathe.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, that's the thing, because as somebody who, like myself, who does love a good found footage horror film, like, there are definitely a lot more bad ones out there than good. Like, or at least in my opinion, there's like a very much a mixed bag of a lot of them. But I would definitely say the Unfriended films are definitely one of the better ones, in my opinion, and particularly because they use what they call the screen life format, which, of course, is like the whole story takes place on a computer screen. And I know a lot of people who don't like the second film, Dark Web, but I always found that I really like the film as a whole. I mean, it's not as good as the first one was, but I think it's still very effective in its own way. And in a lot of ways, at least personally for me, I find it a little tad more scarier than the first one. Maybe because like the threat that the characters are dealing with may not actually be supernatural.
It may or not be supernatural. It feels a little bit more realistic on what happens when you pick up a virus more than I think the first one does, at least. Now, the first one's interesting because it is literally a haunted computer, kind of. Well, social, I don't know. Social media, I don't know, something's haunted. And whereas Dark Web feels much more grounded, and anyone who's tooled around on the internet has some point picked up something they shouldn't have, gone somewhere they shouldn't, and just picked up something that you're like, oh, crap. And this is kind of that feeling, but it just kind of plays out in real... Again, both these movies play out in real time, and they, again, a movie that is kind of exploiting how people use entertainment now. The whole joke of, I watched, Tenet on my phone is the way that Christopher Nolan intended, is the joke. And that's kind of what movies are playing with. And I think it's kind of fascinating that when someone can do a screen life movie well.
Yeah, does my mic sound all right? Because I just fixed up one of the ports.
You sound good.
Okay, cool. I had to fix up one of the ports, so at least hopefully I'll sound better now. Anyways. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I've seen quite a few screen life films. I don't know if you ever saw, there was one that played a myth a few years back called Profile.
No, I never saw that one.
That one was a really good one because it dealt with terrorism, and that was actually a very effective use of it. And, of course, probably the best example of the screen life format is Searching with John Cho.
Well, when you get a good actor like John Cho, and then you just... especially because he is looking for his missing daughter on that one. So it is literally going through all the things you would do to try and contact your daughter on a screen. That one's a really, really great one. So, and then as I mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned this. Yeah, The Host. I've already mentioned that as well, which was the start of the pandemic. No one knew what was really happening. We all thought we were going to be in our house for a month. And then somehow they made this movie. And so, yeah, I think there are some really interesting things you can do with it. And I think it just sort of shows, again, there's an adaptability to horror. That will always... I mean, you can take it back to sort of William Castle and how he used to like rig up the screens and you had different vision glasses, all that kind of thing. Yeah, there's just different ways you can watch movies. So we might as well get into it. Just like trying to go. No, I'm actually really looking forward to talking about this movie. And I didn't have as bad a time with it as I thought I was going to yesterday. And that is, of course, Dangertainment, Halloween Resurrection, directed by Rick Rosenthal, who has already directed a really great Halloween movie and then directed Resurrections.
Tomorrow night, you will enter the childhood home of our most brutal mass murderer. The home has been rigged up with several cameras, but for the most part, the audience will see only what you see.
6 friends.
Are you sure they're not just putting us in some house with hidden cameras in the shower?
This is gonna be fun.
Have been offered fame and fortune.
That's the American dream.
All they need to do.
All the windows will be boarded up and all the doors will be locked shut behind them. No one will be allowed to leave until the show is over.
You stay the night.
Let the Dangertainment begin.
Now.
You think this is the one that he used to, do his thing?
The webcast is live.
One flash and you could light up 1,000 computer screens.
You are like this close to getting voted off the island.
The stage is set.
Is anybody else seeing this? That worked perfect.
Whoa!
It's all fake. We've been set up.
I'm only trying to give America a good show.
But the house.
Wait, what just happened? We just lost Bill's camera. There's somebody in the hall.
Is his.
Michael's here!
Did you go see this in a theater, Bede, when it came out?
I did see it in the theater when it came out. Well, back where I used to live before I moved out here to Melbourne, my small little country town, we actually had our own little small cinema, which would play movies like every week. Sometimes we had to wait for some movies to come around. I think it was like somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks before a film came out our way. But I did see Halloween Resurrection at that cinema with a group of friends. At the time, I did enjoy it, but, when you watch that film more and more times over the years, you definitely start to realize, like, yeah, this movie is not good. I mean, it's watchable, but it's definitely not a good movie at all.
Oh, no, that's what I will give it credit for. This movie is absolutely watchable, except for that first 4 minutes. Once you get into Laurie, Jamie Lee Curtis Strode, and she's kind of pimped out the asylum like it's goddamn Home Alone, yes, that's when it kind of becomes watchable. But I think it does commit one of the there's a really good article I'm going to attach to this episode. It is looking back, because this is actually the 20th anniversary.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It is the 20th anniversry. 20th
anniversary of this movie. And there's a really good article of Bloody Disgusting, written by Paul Lee, and it was sort of saying that, yeah, you can kill off characters. I personally don't like it. I think once they survive, you should let them go free and live their life. But this comes back and it kills Laurie. Jamie Lee Curtis wanted to just be done with the whole thing. I think she was just like, can we stop bringing me back? That would be wonderful. The producer, Ahmed, actually had a stipulation that Michael couldn't die. So they kind of had to make up a reason on H2O how Michael wouldn't die, even though you see his head. They had to have it both ways. So we didn't see that in H2O. So if they were ever going to do a sequel, that's something that we're going to have in there regardless. Which sucks, because the whole Michael getting to the ambulance driver, sewing his mouth together and putting the mask on him, no. I've always hated that. I still hate it. But I think it's sort of fascinating when you look at the mechanics of, and of course, the brothers that shall not be named, we're not going to let a hit like H2O go without a sequel.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like And the funny thing is, though, with Halloween H2O, that was like probably one of the very few horror films that I can think of that actually had the perfect ending for that franchise.
Yes.
Because I remember being in the cinema watching that film, and then when that ending came, I in my inner self applauded that ending because I thought that was the perfect way to end the series. Like, Michael has finally been defeated. And I'm surprised it took this long for someone to actually think, you know what? Maybe we should decapitate Michael.
Yes, just take the head off. No, I remember we cheered in our theater at H2O. Like, it wasn't an audible, yay, she's done it. She's finally killed the monster. And so when you go back and watch Resurrections and realize that it's not Michael, there's a because the ending was so well done in H2O, there is a sense of betrayal, which I'm usually not the person to, okay, I have been on record saying if they kill off any one of the original Scream Core, I'm leaving. And I didn't leave in Scream 5 because I thought they did it well. But I was going to be really mad. And it's because of this moment of... Usually I'm like, creators should do what they should do. They're making it not just for me. But there was a real sense of betrayal I felt when I first watched this movie. It is petulant for sure, but there's a betrayal of... You had the perfect ending, and now you've just ruined it. What the hell?
Yeah, especially for a movie that, by every fan of this franchise, it definitely is very much a betrayal. Because I think, and especially with, like, if Halloween Resurrection had been, say, an actual good film, then maybe it would, that whole, opening 15 minutes would have been, what the impact of that first 15 minutes would have softened as well. But since the rest of the movie is not good at all, it definitely adds much of a damper on it. And it doesn't surprise me at all that I know a lot of people kind of just ignore Halloween Resurrection as a whole in the franchise and see it as kind of like its own little thing.
Yeah.
Especially because let's just face it, the Halloween franchise is basically like its own multiverse at the moment.
It really is. I mean, I've heard it described as the Halloween series as a choose your own adventure, which is true. You can either go for sort of the original kind of up to 6, or even just the first 2, and then 4, 5, and 3. 3 is its own thing, then 4, 5, and 6. And then Halloween H2O, and if you want to acknowledge Resurrection, you can. And then you've got the Rob Zombie, and then the new David Gordon Green trilogy. So you can kind of pick and choose which Halloween you like and kind of stay in that little multiverse. But we're sort of watching them again. I've kind of realized, even though I don't like the reveal of Laurie being Michael's sister, I really didn't like it when they stopped acknowledging it. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, it's kind of the conundrum. Like, I think both work in their own way, whether Michael is Laurie's brother or, they're not siblings at all. But I guess if I had to choose between the two, I guess I still prefer them being siblings, because maybe that's because I'm used to that kind of aspect of their relationship for so long. But at the same time, though, without them being siblings now in the new series that they're doing at the moment, it still works because Laurie is kind of thinks like there's this big event, like has this, like her relationship with Michael is pure vengeance, but Michael in his own way really does not give a shit about Laurie.
No.
Which is another aspect I do appreciate about, the new films, but I could definitely see why some people kind of go back and forth between the two. But I guess in one element, I probably prefer them just a little bit more as siblings, because again, I'm used to that kind of relationship between the two of them that way.
Yeah, plus Michael is a true predator. So having him hunt something specific, I think I enjoy more. And I know I've spent most of episode 2 already going off like, do they really need the reveal? I don't like the reveal. I don't like how it's done. So I realize how much of a hypocrite I am on this. But I do like it when he's got a kind of a goal. And in this one, even though it should feel like, okay, they're in my house, I'm going to kill them all, it kind of feels a little bit lackluster, because if you're going to have Michael as kind of secondary, which they have done in 6 and in H2O, you need to make everyone interesting. And even though Busta Rhymes is the most interesting character in this movie, he's not capable, because he's not an actor that can hold it together. He's an entertainer because he's Dangertainment, but he's not. You needed a stronger Make Katie Sackhoff the lead. That is what they should have done.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though, with this film, and what I find, in a way, fascinating about it, is I like Busta Rhymes. Like, he's a fun guy. But you're right, though. I think he works better when he's a supporting character rather than being the lead. And, like, he probably would have fitted better, his role should have been kind of similar to, like, how LL Cool J's role was in Halloween H2O.
Yes.
Where he's, like, just a supporting character. Because I think LL Cool J is definitely a better actor than Busta Rhymes, for sure.
Yes, he is.
And he has already, and he can prove he can carry a film because he has been the lead in a few projects.
Yeah.
But Busta Rhymes, definitely not leading man material in this film. But that being said, though, even though like his performance in this film is weird because it's definitely not a good performance, but yet it's an entertaining performance because it seems like he's the only one who's kind of giving it his all, while everyone else in the film, they're kind of just playing stock characters where you just don't really care about them that much.
Yeah, and Halloween Resurrection actually has a good cast. I mean, it's definitely taking the old Dimension kind of rule of make sure you get the hottest kids that the teens like in the movie and try and get them sort of into it. So you do have a cast of Tyra Banks, Thomas Nicholas, who was in American Pie, as I mentioned before, Katie Sackhoff, who's just awesome, Jean Patrick Thomas. There's a whole bunch of kind of up-and-comers from the CW kind of feel about it before the CW was an actual thing. And it worked. Look, it worked for Scream, it worked for H2O, and it worked for I Know What You Did Last Summer. So I can see why they'll go for that formula, and because they have LL Cool J in H2O, we'll get Busta Rhymes, but LL Cool J is actually a better actor. He's so doofus in H2O, but it kind of works, even if he's constantly on the phone to his girlfriend reading erotic fiction. I actually kind of like that relationship. But with Busta Rhymes, it just kind of felt like, I'm a really good rapper and musician. Yes, you are. So you're just going to narrate everything you're doing in this movie, aren't you? Yes, I am.
And like, even though like I think you're right in the terms of like it definitely is a cast that they were basically getting who was the hot quote unquote teen actors at the time. Like you say, like Thomas Ian Nicholas was in the American Pie films and he's a bigger name, and having someone like him attached to it and killing him off as the first of those characters like would be kind of a shock moment. But it's not really, because his character is very annoying and very sexist, and again, he just like keeps touching Katie, and she's like, no, like it's just actually all the guys in this are kind of scummy except for friggin' poor Sean Patrick Thomas.
Sean Patrick Thomas. He's the only decent one, and he's the only decent one, and everyone else is an absolute scumbag. So
well, that's the thing though, like. Thomas Ian Nicholas and Luke Kirby, their characters are essentially the same character.
They are.
Well, like, if I didn't know that they were two separate actors, I would have thought it was the same character in different scenes, because they're basically just cracking on to all the women around them, with Thomas Ian Nicholas keep going after Katie Sackhoff.
Michael Myers is the great white of our unconscious. Like, we all want to kill the lady in the checkout counter in front of us. I'm just like, could you write a more piece? I know the character's meant to be wanky, but could you write a more piece of wank than a dialogue?
Exactly, and also just all the characters are like that. Like, even I always keep forgetting Katie Sackhoff is in this film.
Me too.
And like, this is again like one of her earliest roles, and she brings. I enjoyed her in this film as well, because I don't know why, like on this recent rewatch of the film, she definitely has a lot of Brittany Murphy energy in this performance.
She really does. She's actually really cool. She's actually really fun and bubbly and actually has energy, where there's everyone else in that house, except for, again, Sean Patrick Kelly is actually trying. Actually, no, wait, there's too many triple-barreled names. God damn it. Why was this a thing in the 2000s? Like, blue-powdered, Jean Patrick Thomas, sorry. He's trying. And he's not too bad in it, though he's given nothing to do. But it's just those two. Everyone else just looks bored.
Yeah. Well, Sean Patrick Thomas, basically his only character trait in this entire film is that his character loves to cook.
Yes, that is it. He likes kitchens.
Yeah, and I always love the fact that, like, because he did Save the Last Dance, which was like his big breakout film prior to this, and I always find it funny that he gets a special appearance by credit in this film, even though when I see somebody get it on a credit like that, it's usually like they're only in it for one scene, but he's in the movie quite a lot. This is more than just a special appearance.
He's one of the last people to go, actually, from memory. So it's like, he's the one who's going to try and fight Michael Myers, and, well, Busta Rhymes does as well, because for the infamous round kick.
Yes, which is definitely, like, the most, like, cringiest moment in the entire film, but...
Anyways, yes, that round kick is an infamous part of Halloween lore now. It was always bound to happen. Someone always puts a round kick in there somewhere, but just not in this movie.
Yeah, and basically, and also with him saying later on in the film, trick or treat, motherfucker, is also like an infamous but hilariously bad line as well.
It really is. It's and I just love at the end, Michael Myers ain't no soundbite. It's like, that's actually kind of a good line if you were recording something.
Yeah, well, I love the fact that this movie at the end of it with Busta Rhymes tries to bring a bit of social commentary.
Yes.
At the very end with, like, Michael Myers, like, he's a killer. And all that type of stuff, and goes down into that whole, like, spiel, like he's a shark and all that type of stuff. And it's like, it's a bit late to kind of leave this social commentary at the last minute. Especially
considering you're the one who set everything up. I guess you've learned your lesson now, but it just doesn't feel like you have. I mean, if this movie had actually leaned into the social commentary of it all, I think it would have been really, really fascinating. The scruples of the producers, the fact that they are tricking people into think there's something spooky in the house, the fact that they are exploitating this house where this horrible crime happened, and then a series of crimes happens because of what happened in this house. And then, of course, Michael comes back and wreaks havoc. But it's, it could have been really, really fascinating, and how we see people... how we see tragedy, how we treat tragedy. And it was kind of before... Now we're in, like, a big true crime boom. Like, there's even a podcast I like to listen to that's about true crime. And Netflix and all that kind of thing. And it's interesting about our fascination with the gory details of the killer, and not necessarily trying to celebrate the victims. And we should be, because they were living people who died horribly. And it kind of brings up all these things, but all they do it is like at a soundbite in the end to go, oh yeah, so this movie's about this. No, it's not. Stop it.
It definitely isn't. And one thing I do love about this film, and I've completely forgot this was in the film, do you remember the little moment in the film that basically is a homage to Peeping Tom?
I did notice it this time, because I've seen Peeping Tom the first time. I did not realize that. And that's the one kill I like.
Because that was like, at least somebody who wrote this film, like, had seen Peeping Tom and wanted to homage it in some way in this film.
Before Peeping Tom was actually coming back into people's consciousness as the masterpiece that it is. But I was like, hang on, I was Leonardo DiCaprio with freaking watching TV. Hang on, I know that's Peeping Tom.
And kind of to go back to the beginning of this film, like with Jamie Lee Curtis. And I think another thing that kind of stings about the opening, other than the fact that it is a betrayal with, she didn't really kill Michael after all and that type of stuff, is that it's very obvious, you watch the beginning, that Jamie Lee Curtis is very much phoning it in.
She is. I mean... In H2O, she is really giving an amazing performance, as I talked about with Mike. That performance kind of makes up for any fault H2O has, because she's really giving this amazing performance. This one, she's there for a day. She does not give a fuck, and you can see her holding her paycheck in her hand, is just like, get me out of here.
But the funny thing is, though, and I thought about this for a while, and rewatching it again in prep for this show, it just pretty much cemented it for me, is that first 15 minutes of the film could easily have been its own film.
It really could have been, and you could have done a really interesting movie, even if you ended with Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers falling from the asylum. You could have easily done this amazing kind of movie in a hospital, because we've kind of seen that. I mean, yes, maybe Rick Rosenthal didn't want to do that again, because he essentially did that in Halloween 2. And he kind of, there's a really cool moment where you see the shadow of Michael on the wall right at the beginning. I'm like, oh, there's Rick. Because this is kind of what he does well. And then because this movie has to be about Dangertainment, it's in this house. But yeah, no, you could have easily done the first 15 minutes could have easily been its own movie, and you don't necessarily need this first 15 minutes to go into a house with a bunch of kids who were there on Halloween in his old house. They don't belong together. Yeah,
it's like two separate films just joined as one, and like either of them could have just been separate. Like I think with Halloween Resurrection, like you didn't even need that first 15 minutes. It could have easily have just been its own standalone story. You didn't have to bring Laurie back at all.
No, it really didn't. And you could have somehow still gotten around the way that the producer didn't want Michael dead. I mean, there are still ways you could have, or just make it in another universe. Hey, Michael's alive in this universe, which I think we're more accepting now. Back in 98 and 2002, we were like, well, no, how did he get away with being decapitated? But yeah, that moment just, I hate it so much. And yeah, even the Bloody Disgusting article does refer to this as a fan betrayal, which I think it is. And I don't think a creator should be thinking of that kind of thing when they're making art. Like, I've had too many people sort of going, release the Ayers cut or whatever cut, or just give us what we want, and not to think about kind of what the art... Anyway, but this really kind of felt like a stupid move, narratively, just in terms of, you've done this, now we're just going to go back and reverse it, and now we're going to do a completely different movie. Doesn't seem right even 20 years later.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it could have just been its own thing. That's what I think. It probably would have worked better as its own thing. Set it as kind of a prequel. What was Michael getting up to in between those 20 years?
Yes!
Like, between Halloween 2 and H2O. Like, what was he doing? Because, he had been trying to find Laurie during that entire time. And it's obvious, like, based on what the information of this film gives us, that he had been hanging out in his old house for quite a while in the back. Like, what he'd been doing during those 20 years? Like, you could easily there's plenty of ways you can create a story in that time frame. Like, obviously, in the original early development of H2O, like, they were going to acknowledge that 4 through 6 actually did happen in that timeline.
Yes.
And Laurie was actually felt guilty that she had left Jamie behind and started, so she can go into hiding and all that. So, like, yeah, granted, like, you couldn't do that in, how they sort of ended up using Halloween H2O in the end, but you could have easily just did its own story. Like, maybe Michael was part of that reality TV show, then he left and then decided to go hunt Laurie or something like that.
Exactly. There's so many things you could have done with it, and I mean, they did a similar thing in Halloween to Rob Zombie's movie, where you sort of see what he's been doing. He's been living in a shack, eating the occasional dog, doing his own thing, and then he sees something about Loomis and Laura, and he's like, okay, I need to go back to Haddonfield to go and cause more death and destruction.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you can still kind of keep it both ways. I mean, that's what Halloween always tries to do. It always tries to keep it in both ways. Of, yes, he is a supernatural being, yet he is only human. And I don't think, very rarely do I think they really kind of get that that balance right. Because it's a really hard balance to do. At least with Jason, he's a supernatural being pretty much from the first movie when he jumps out of that lake. Like, it sets up that really, really easy, and it's much more easy to accept Jason. But Michael, we always have to have rules. You always have to have so many rules with Michael.
And also, like, every universe has its own set of rules when it comes to Michael.
Yes. Yes. Like, I'm dreading and looking forward to ends, because I'm just like, okay, so you've broken and established so many rules in these 2 movies. I don't know where you're going in 3.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that as well. But whatever we end up with, I don't think it'll ever be as bad as Halloween Resurrection.
No. I mean, people complain about kills. Yeah, Halloween Resurrection is just a mess of a movie. We haven't gotten into the friggin' teenage boy helping out Sarah, the final girl. What did you think of that whole weird subplot? Just before we get into W thing, I just think it's a really weird subplot of actually having this it's mocking. I mean, internet dating is a thing now. We do it all the time. But before then, it was either a 50-year-old man you were talking to or a 15-year-old boy, and there was no in between.
Yeah, that was kind of whole subplot. Like, again, like internet dating was a thing, or even just going in chat rooms and talking to people. Like, I'm also was kind of part of that culture too. I used to frequent chat rooms and stuff all the time, and occasionally I would talk to women and stuff like that. Like, again, like you know, it's not a serious thing, but how it's portrayed here is pretty interesting. But at the same time, it is kind of, even though there's only a small age difference between the two characters, but you know, he is a teenager and she's a university student. And then I also realized is that there was a university in Haddonfield. Haddonfield has its own university.
Since when? No, it's Haddonfield. So full of surprises. No, it just feels kind of weird. I mean, it's to give someone it's to give someone an audience who's actually showing who's watching this thing, this Dangertainment thing, and I do like that he clicks on pretty quickly of no, that is a dead body. We're actually watching murder take place, and everyone is like absolutely fine with it until they sort of realize, wait, she's actually in danger, and then so that kind of thing. But he's pretty onto it, and even the police don't believe him. Like, no, it's not. It's a joke. It's like, so seriously, you guys are watching it too? It's like everyone in Haddonfield is watching this thing.
Although my only biggest regret about this film is the movie deprived us of a Tyra Banks death.
Yes, you just kind of saw her hanging there. I was just like, oh man, we could have had the... Yeah, there's actually, like, I can't even remember the order of the deaths now, but a lot of them feel vague. Like, I don't remember the first guy dying. I remember the redhead dying, and I don't really remember the other guy dying. See, I'm already forgetting their names.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think, I can't even remember any of the characters' names in this movie, and which is kind of funny because... Like, even though they got actors who I recognize and have seen in so many things, like Bianca Kajic, who's, you know, the lead female character in the film, I was actually excited when she was cast in this film because I'd seen her on the TV show Boston Public, and I thought she was great.
Oh, yeah, she is in that. Yeah, she is good in that.
And I thought, oh, she's going to be great in this film, and unfortunately, she's just not given much to do at all with her character. And then there's, like, weird moments in this film as well, like the scene where... a light shatters behind her during the interview, and she screams so loud that glass literally shatters.
Busta Rhymes going, yeah, that's what we want. I'm just like, what is that? Okay, this is a terrible reality show to begin with. And without Michael Myers coming into it all, it's just...
And also a very small show because it's Busta Rhymes, Tyra Banks, maybe two other people, and that's about it.
Yeah. It's really, really tiny. This is a definite small startup. I mean, the more I talk about it, the more I'm just going to say I don't like this movie. And I don't think it works. I think it is interesting, and I think it is worth watching it just for Busta Rhymes, because I think he is hilarious, because I think he does narrate every single thing he's doing in it. Like, I'm going to go to the door now. I'm going to open it up. Who are you?
Although my favorite moment in this movie is like at one moment he pretends to be Michael Myers, has the costume, and then Michael comes up behind him and he's about to stab him, and then he turns around thinking it's one of the other crew members, and he just gives Michael a massive talk down, and then Michael's like, okay, and then he just walks away. And that's probably the first time that it's ever happened where somebody literally just like yelled and screamed at Michael Myers, and instead of Michael just stabbing the person, he just ends up as like, okay, and just walks away.
Yeah, you're right. I was expecting him to stab him, and he just kind of looks at him and goes, I'll deal with you later. No, not the... Actually, I do remember one of the deaths, because this movie does actually reference some of the other movies really nicely. The kitchen guy gets stabbed through the wall, much like in Poor Bill in movie 1.
Yep.
You have a head squeeze like in Halloween 4. You have Sarah running around on the roof like in 4. And there was something else that I went, hang on, this feels very similar to a kill in 2, but now I can't remember what it is. I probably did write it down, but this is that kind of movie, just disappears from your head. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about Halloween Resurrection before we move on to the good movie of the piece?
Well, back to Tyra Banks.
Yes.
It's weird though, because I got the Blu-ray. I had the Scream Factory box set when they released that a long time ago. I was looking at some of the deleted scenes, and I remembered because I remember a while back seeing like they actually did shoot Tyra Banks' death. but it's not in the deleted scenes. And I know I had seen that scene on YouTube, but I think the reason why it's not on there is like her acting in her death scene is hilariously bad because she is screaming, like she's being choked and she's screaming, but it doesn't sound natural at all. And it's just weird. And I hope it's actually, I'm not misremembering this death scene because I know I did see it. I'm pretty sure it is out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's kind of, I always thought she was in the movie more than she actually is. Yeah, I was sort of watching it going, I thought Tyra Banks was actually doing more in this movie than she's actually doing, because she's only really there at the end of, at the kind of the, hey, let's film you for the first time to not
I found it on. It is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube. Just look up Nora's death on Halloween Resurrection and you'll find it. But one more little thing about this film, and this is kind of another thing on YouTube. I think it might have been 2 years ago when this happened, but Katie Sackhoff, like, she has her own YouTube channel, and I believe one year she decided to rewatch Halloween Resurrection, and she filmed her reactions because she hadn't seen the film since it came out.
Yeah,
and I remember watching that video, and it is actually a really fun and hilarious video, just seeing her reacting to everything that's happening in that movie. So if people go find that video on YouTube, it's pretty hilarious.
No, yeah, Katie Sackhoff is amazing, and I do actually enjoy her in this movie. I think she's really, really fun, even though she's kind of just given the bitchy wants to be famous girl. And there's, again, another character who's exactly the same as her, though I do like how she doesn't get naked but is about to pretend to that she will, and the other girl is the actual one who does get naked. I think that's kind of an interesting contrast, if I was going to choose an interesting contrast in this movie, but it's degrees of girls getting naked. But yeah, she's actually really, really fun in this, and to have her when she kind of dies, though her death is actually kind of cool. I mean, the head of her just lying on the floor is actually pretty special. Yeah,
I mean, you'd have to have a lot of power to decapitate someone with a butcher knife. Yeah, just like in one swoop like that.
Yeah, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Michael Myers.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they do that thing where he's just walking towards you really slowly, and they just kind of stand there, and I'm just like going, okay, maybe I would probably just stand there because I'm paralyzed with fear, but at the same time, I'm like, you're in a movie, run.
But also, one more thing, and I swear this is it. You know how much, how phoned in that pretty much Jamie Lee Curtis was in this film is that I don't think they actually used her photo, like a recent photo of her on the poster for this movie.
No, they used H2O.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, her haircut on the poster is not the same haircut that she has in the film.
Oh, I mean, the tradition of putting Jamie Lee Curtis in a bed and in a bad wig is kind of now a Halloween tradition. They've done it for nearly every single timeline she's in.
Exactly.
But yeah, they used a picture of her from H2O, and she looks amazing in H2O, so I don't blame them. She's like super sexy in that movie, but yeah, she is so checked out at this point. I'm like, I don't blame you, but I can't blame you the paycheck on this, but seriously, you deserve better. You know you deserve better.
Yeah. A part of me does wish, like, maybe she should have just said no, just to keep the integrity of that ending for H2O. But I suppose at the end of the day, money talks. So.
Money talks, and I think she was at that time just done with it. I think at that point she didn't want to do another Halloween movie until Blumhouse came back and said, okay, we can't afford a dump trunk of money, but we can afford a little truck of money. Would you mind coming back?
Exactly.
And to be in a Halloween movie. But I think at the time she was just like Harrison Ford in Star Wars, just like going, can you please just kill me off? Please.
Yeah,
let
that's
me die.
pretty much. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it at the end of the day. She only did this film so she could just finally be killed off.
Yeah. Just for good and just be done with the whole thing. Because she's not a big horror fan. I mean, I know she knows, and I don't know how she felt about it at that time. I think she's now realizing the history and the kind of how people feel about it. I don't know. She realized that in the late 90s, early 2000s. And H2O did get slagged on quite heavily because it was the Scream ripoff, even though it is, even though that movie is in large part Scream, because Kevin Williamson pretty much wrote it. I think it's still its own cool thing, and then Resurrection just went, yeah, nah.
Yeah, I think it pretty much sums it up with like Halloween H2O, the perfect satisfying end to a franchise. Halloween Resurrection, not the most satisfying end to a franchise.
No, I just love the bit when Sarah's by the truck and he goes, "Oh, Sarah, you're alive," and she looks around for him. He's like, "No, I'm watching you on TV," and it's like, "Oh," it's like, yes, because that is a child.
Exactly.
And then Busta Rhymes comes up and goes, "Hey," and I'm just like, movie, did you actually think about anything you were doing and how you were going to end anything in this?
I swear, like, Rick Rosenthal just let Busta Rhymes just do whatever he wanted in this film. Because there are moments where, it's obviously he's improving.
Yes.
Or even just, some of his facial expressions are just hilarious in certain moments.
Yeah, well. like the moment when he's dressing Michael down, he's just, telling him off for, way too long. And you could just feel Michael's like, "Hey, I'm getting bored with this. I'm going to go over here." No, I mean, he's the reason to watch it. I think he is the most interesting because he's doing something. I mean, he's not doing something well, but I think he is actually giving an energy to the movie. Without him, I don't know how watchable this movie would actually be. It would just be people standing in a house with Katie going, "Hey, cool, yay!" God, I don't know what I'm not experienced enough to actually hold a movie together yet. I have not been in Battlestar Galactica. I have not gotten my credits as an actor yet. I need to, yeah.
Exactly.
You good to go on to WNUF?
Yes, let's do this.
Okay, with that, the curtains are reopening, and we're going to go into something so shaky that you're going to think you're back in the 1980s again, because we are with the WNUF Halloween special. Now, Bede, what is going to be your first trailer?
Well, my first trailer for the WNUF Halloween special, and I made sure to remember the first part of that title so much in the lead up to this show.
I am going to ruin it at some stage. I just might call it the Halloween special from now on.
Yeah, and luckily for me, I'm looking over and I realize the Blu-ray for this movie is staring at me in the face, so I can at least look over and remember.
Yeah.
But for my first trailer for this film, I am going to pick the film that this film was clearly inspired by, and that, of course, is the 1992 horror mockumentary Ghostwatch.
Susie. Stop it! Stop it, Susie! Suzanne, you're coming with me.
So welcome live this Halloween night to the first ever TV Ghost Watch. That's the scene in Foxhill Drive in Northolt. Our outside broadcast units are there. That's the house where it might all happen tonight, or it might not. We shall see.
Get off me! Susie! Mike! Oh, my God, what's happened? Are you okay? Look.
Round and round the garden.
I still need to see this movie. Someone's putting it out, aren't they? Or have they had put it
I believe it's 88. I'm trying to remember which company it was, but I know a British boutique label are releasing this on Blu-ray, but also one in the US is doing it as well. So it's definitely coming out very soon. I'm very excited to pick up that Blu-ray.
Me too. This movie is infamous. Can you please tell everyone why this movie is so infamous?
Well, pretty much what it is. It was released. It was released on Halloween night on the BBC in 1992, and it's basically it was done as kind of like a prank TV show. In the sort of the lead up to it, it was announcing the BBC are going to do this special Halloween show where we're going to go to a haunted house and find out if it's haunted. And the thing is, what to make it even more realistic, that they actually got real BBC presenters to be part of it. Michael Parkinson was involved with this film. And it's also, again, shot in the documentary format. And the thing that what is interesting about this film is that it's a very infamous and controversial film, because when it aired, people didn't realize it was fake. They thought it was a legit real show, and that all the creepy and scary stuff that was happening throughout was actually happening.
Yeah.
To the point where it scared people so much that, you know, like the BBC had like phone calls from parents and other groups and all that protesting this film. And I believe this film might have actually had caused somebody to commit suicide as well, because they were so convinced the film was real.
It is a definite War of the Worlds situation, Orson Welles broadcasting War of the Worlds situation. And for people who don't know who Michael Parkinson is, he was the 70s and 80s late night talk show. He is the Johnny Carson, I guess, of Britain. And maybe just a sleazy, actually, because I know there's an infamous interview with Helen Mirren where he spent the whole time talking about her boobs. So he's kind of like that, but he was such an institution in Britain that if he is on this, and it's BBC One, not BBC Two, not BBC Four, it's the main BBC. So if you're sitting there watching BBC One, Michael Parkinson is on there, you're going to think this is a real thing. And I cannot wait to see this, because I've heard that it is actually generally terrifying in some parts.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for a few years, but I remember it being very creepy. And also what was interesting about the actual haunting within the film, that it was based on I'm trying to remember the name of the real life haunting that it was based on. It was the same one that The Conjuring 2 centered its story around.
Oh, yes. I do know the one. I can't remember, but it was, like a East London-esque house with a poltergeist, and it's a very famous British case.
Yeah, I just can't remember the name of the place where it was set.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have a lot of people yelling at me right now because of that. But yeah, it was just a very controversial film, and yeah, it caused a lot of outrage, and a lot of people scared people so much that it, you know, some people had to go to therapy, and even but it is a very effective film. When I watched it, I being a horror fan, I kind of saw a lot of things coming and all that. It didn't scare me as much as, you know, other films have, but it's still a very creepy film, and it just gets more and more crazier as it goes along. And there's a reason when you watch it, especially knowing the history behind this film and just seeing why it caused such an uproar for so long, and to the point for a long time this film never even got a home media released because it was that controversial. Yeah. And also the film, and I was just looking this up right now because I didn't realize the film was written by Stephen Volk. And he was also the writer behind films such as Gothic, The Kiss, and The Guardian.
Oh my God. That is, yeah. That is insane. Yeah, no, that is actually the perfect trailer, because this is kind of what, as you said, WNUF pretty much took this premise and ran with it, but decided we're going to set it in 1984?
87, I think.
87.
Yeah, I just know that, WNUF was very much inspired by this film, and they kind of did a more horror comedic version.
They did. Because we're going to get into Frank very soon. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I was going to choose The Sacrament, but I'm actually going to keep my haunted house kind of thing going, but I'm going to go for James Wan's Conjuring from 2013.
Let me try with pleasure hands.
Clap.
I'm gonna get you now. I can hear you breathing.
You took your blindfold off. I win. I was in Christine and Nancy's room.
Girls, it's way past your bedtime.
Ooh.
Which is the kind of story of the Warrens, who were the biggest hucksters in history. If you actually read about them, they are not Patrick Wilson and, oh my God, what's her name?
Oh, Vera Farmiga.
Vera Farmiga. They are not that good looking, that beautiful, and that superhero-esque. But The Conjuring is based on the first story is basically based on the Amityville house. The actual haunting, not what happened before the haunting. So I have a theme of real stories and tragedy and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I really do love The Conjuring. I love everything James Wan has pretty much done. Even Saw's kind of grown on me a little bit. This is just a really good, solid, spooky house kind of story. It's got all the jump scares in the right places. James Wan is a master of tone. I love Farmiga and Patrick Wilson as a married couple, even in 3, and I did not like The Devil Made Me Do It, but I liked those two in it, even though they look kind of lost. They are not what the actual Warrens were at all. But I do like the fantasy of what The Conjuring is.
All right, I thought I had to look this up before. The Enfield Poltergeist, that was what Ghostwatch, like the ghost at the center of that film was inspired by.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, The Conjuring is definitely a perfect choice for a film like this because, again, it's set entirely in a house. And it also involves WNUF has its own kind of Warren-esque married couple.
They do, yes.
At the center of it. And, having, the act. And I think it's perfect to pick this film because, it has the Warrens, played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, going to help this family and the sort of the spooky happenings at this house. And it's just a very effective horror film. To me, I think it is still James Wan's best film because this is him just firing on all cylinders and kind of successfully emulating the horror films of the 70s because it feels very much like a 70s horror film.
Yeah.
And it's just a really well done film that is very creepy, has great performances, and it's just a very chilling film. And also it was so successful enough it created its own franchise, which I don't think anyone expected to be one of the most successful kind of multi-film franchises currently out there today.
Yeah, it just didn't create its own franchise. It created its own world. I mean, now we have Annabelle, the Annabelle series. There's The Nun 2 coming out.
Yeah, it kind of did like what the Marvel Cinematic Universe does. Like it has its own, like it's probably one of the only few that successfully created its own universe of films.
It really does. And I forget people think how good, and because of that, I think because those movies are so up and down, the other franchises, I think people forget how solid the first one is. And actually the sequel is actually about the Enfield house.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm kind of surprised you didn't pick that one, but I still think the first one is still a good pick.
I think I like the first one better than the second one, even if the second one does have Patrick Wilson singing Elvis.
Yes.
Which is just adorable. But no, that is going to be... So what is going to be your second trailer?
Now, WNUF is what I love about the film, and we'll go into it when we talk about it, is that it tries to emulate like what TV was like in the 80s, like from the commercials, the visual aesthetic, and also the fact that it's also done like it was found on a videotape that has been watched multiple times. So for my second pick, I'm going for a film that kind of does a very similar aesthetic with its approach to its story, and that of course is the 2015 satirical slasher comedy Dude Bro Party Massacre 3.
In part 1, she got revenge. In part 2, she decided to have more revenge. This summer, Motherface returns for the final chapter.
I'm here to find out who murdered my brother.
So brutal. So twisted. You ruined my life! So offensive, it was banned in 18 states and never released.
Motherface is rising on the harvest moon to kill the Delta Buys.
Joe, weekend at the lake? It'll be like a dude bro party. Like Easter for men.
I still need to watch this. I have heard about it so much. I think I'm going to have to just bite the bullet, grab it, and watch it for a June exploitation next year, because this feels like the perfect time to watch it. So what is the third installment of this non-franchise about?
Well, pretty much like, again, it's the third installment of a franchise. And from what I remember, like I've seen this movie twice now, and one of those times was for an episode of the To Be Tuesdays podcast, because it was my episode for that week. So I chose this one because I felt like it really fitted the format. And basically the whole premise is like, it's presented as a lost film to a slasher franchise called Dude Bro Party Massacre. Like the first two had been out, but apparently from what but then the third film was so violent, so outrageous, they completely banned it. And how it's sort of presented in the film is like you're watching it from a videotape that someone taped of the film at 3 o'clock in the morning. And like WNUF, it has fake trailers. It has that sort of VHS kind of look to it as well. So you've got a lot of the grain and scratches. And also it is a very... This movie doesn't even try to be like a serious slasher film. It is a full-blown comedy. And it's very outrageous. It is very silly. It's one of those comedies where they'll start a joke that starts off being funny, then it stops being funny, then it comes back around to being funny again. And then it just throws so much at the screen in terms of its gags. Like some you're going to laugh your ass off. Others you're going to be like, ugh. And then, but so you go back and forth between that throughout the entire film. It was created by a comedy troupe called 5 Second Films. So it's very much comedy first and horror second, but it also delivers a lot of gore and there's a lot of blood and guts throughout this entire film. And also what I find interesting is that they got some pretty major players to make appearances in this film. You got Patton Oswalt playing the police chief.
Oh, wow.
In this film. And also Greg Sestero is in this film as well as one of the dude bros at the fraternity where most of the action takes place.
Well, that's a reference.
But even then, for some bizarre reason, Larry King makes a cameo.
What? How did they get the King?
I don't know, but he just shows up for like 5 seconds to be like the college PE teacher, and then he just gets killed off very quickly.
That is hilarious. Oh my God. No, I really do need to see this movie. This sounds absolutely amazing. And yeah, again, a perfect trailer for what we will be getting into. My second trailer, I'm going for something similar. Something that captures a bygone era of TV. Actually, I don't know if this is readily available yet. Probably in this everywhere else outside of Australia, but I don't think it's in Australia yet because I was lucky enough to see it at MEF, the Melbourne International Festival, and that is Amanda Kramer's Give Me Pity from, this year, 2022.
Oh, thank you. Oh, my stars, thank you. Well, what do you know? Television, TV, major network. I've been waiting for so long. You know, they thought I was crazy. A television special. But I think they're crazy. Give me pity. But I swear, for you, this special won't end until I'm flat out bashed in, croaking and backstroking, depleted and mistreated, begging each and every one of you to set me free! All you gotta do is bask in me. I can be the one you wait for. I have so much to give.
This stars, I did not write her name down, Bette Midler's daughter.
Yes.
She looks like Bette Midler a lot. Like the first thing, she's got her hair up in like curl, and you're just like, that is Bette Midler's daughter. And it's essentially a one-woman show, a variety show they used to have back in the day, the 70s and the early 80s, where you just had one person singing, dancing, skits kind of thing, reading letters, which apparently was a thing. I didn't realize that we had a letter section in these things. The Star Wars Christmas special kind of format. Just random things happening all the time. But what I kind of loved about this movie, really liked about this movie, because I don't think it's perfect, it kind of descends into insanity. Like, you've got her Sissy St. Clair, who's going to be the biggest star in the world, and that's all she's talking about. And then you realize this is her in a monologue. You're descending into her overinflated ego, yet her self-hatred, which is, I don't know what this is about me, but this reminds me a lot of what happens in your head. You've got that voice that tells you all the bad things and the voice that tells you all the good things. And there's also a possible demon running around, and it just descends into surreal chaos. What is actually happening? Is this is anyone actually watching this, or is this just this woman pretending to put on a variety show?
Yeah, I haven't seen Give Me Pity, but I do remember it was playing at MIF this year, and I tried to fit it in my schedule, but I just couldn't. But I did see the director's other film that played at MIF that year, which was Please Baby Please. But I am definitely curious to check out Give Me Pity. The fact that it has Bette Midler's daughter in the lead role, whose name I can't think of at the moment. I feel really bad about that.
Yes.
Because we don't want to just call her Bette Midler's daughter throughout this entire conversation.
She is her own person.
Yes, exactly.
Let me just look that up. Sophie Van Halberg or something like that.
Yeah.
It is, so Sophie von Hesselberg. I was actually very close. She's actually really great in it. This was actually, because I saw you at the screening afterward for Something in the Dirt. I ran from Kino down to Acme, which if you're in Melbourne, you know what actually that means. But yeah, but with context, you're just sprinting in the streets between people in slippery grey stones to try to get to your next movie without breaking your neck or someone else's neck.
Exactly.
But no, I think it's a really interesting movie, and it really, really relies on her shoulders, and it becomes like the self-delusional parody almost. I think even though it's really short, I think it might be a touch too long. It may have worked just like as a 50-minute special, but where it goes and what it does, and she's absolutely fantastic, and because she isn't allowed to rely on anyone else, so it is essentially like a one-person monologue for 90 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's what kind of intrigued me about it, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out once it sort of becomes readily available and people can check it out. So I'm definitely very excited to see it.
I think it's definitely worth checking out. I cannot wait to see her other one, Please Baby Please, because I was just like, I need to watch some more Amanda Kramer. And with that, we are going to be getting into a movie that really surprised me, because you suggested this or Hell House, and I thought, no, let's go WNUF.
Don't check your dial, folks. You didn't tune into Transylvania's public access station. No, sir. Tonight is Halloween.
Halloween is Satan's night, the night of the devil.
Reporter Frank Stewart has a special Halloween treat in store for viewers tonight. He'll be leading a group of paranormal experts through the infamous Weber House.
Do you know what happened here in the Weber House? Some people got killed. Their son went haywire.
Frank Stewart and his team of experts will conduct the first ever live on TV seance.
Evil works in mysterious ways, Frank. It's unpredictable.
Are there any spirits in the house?
It's scary.
That's far out.
That far out.
Something strange going on in this house. Animal mutilation, paranormal disturbances, devil worship. Wait, whoa, hold on. This is not staged. Hello?
Is this the work of the devil?
Folks, we are going where no camera crew has gone before. Father, perform the exorcism.
This is not some Halloween prank. The grisly evidence of the supernatural is real.
We'll be right back.
Because I had never seen it, and only thing I knew about it was a haunted house, and it was like a 80s news broadcast with ads. But what it does and where it goes actually really surprises me. Did you see this on the Vinegar Syndrome disc? Or
I saw it like way before then, but I did pick up the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray when that was released, and that was kind of one of the things that intrigued me, because I saw a trailer for it like a few years back. And it was like this horror comedy that basically is created to basically the whole plot of the film is that it's a new special episode that's going to be a Halloween edition of the show, in which the main reporter, Frank Stewart, played by Paul Fahrenkopf, and I probably butchered his last name, so please forgive me, is going to do a live show at a haunted house that's kind of infamous in town. And what I really like about this film is when you watched it, like if you didn't know that this was, a made up film, you would honestly think that it was a taped show that was on TV, because it does a very authentic job at capturing what television was like at that period of time, but also the ads as well.
Yes. Though I'm going to get into the theme of the ads, because I was like going, why are they all about children? Anyway, we'll get into that. No, I think it's fascinating. I know growing up in New Zealand, it really does. Like how the ads work, how they keep going to ads. The ad with the guy who's selling the furniture feels even authentic for this neck of the woods. Like there was always that goddamn local, I sell the cheapest beds. And it's always the guy who owns the store. And it's like, this is the daggiest thing ever. And it captures kind of like the flippancy of violence, especially in terms of a live broadcast, because you have to go on the next thing. Before we get into that, I know in New Zealand in the 80s, Halloween was never a thing. We had scary movies. It was kind of around, but no one trick-or-treated. So I've and it wasn't until I was older and started going to more costume parties. I think was kind of more the way we ended up celebrating Halloween, because we had Guy Fawkes Day like the week later, so we were just fine giving kids like firecrackers and seeing what they did with them. I'm assuming this is similar in Australia when you were a kid.
Yeah, well, I remember, like, as a kid, like, Halloween was just not a thing in Australia.
Yeah.
But I was always fascinated by it because growing up, as a kid, like, I would always watch a lot of films or TV shows that had, that was centered around Halloween.
Yeah.
And I was always very fascinated by it. And I remember my siblings and I used to go out and trick-or-treat anyway. Some people did give us lollies and stuff like that, but then of course we had the odd person who would just slam in our face and say Halloween is an American holiday, and piss off and stuff like that.
I'm not giving you anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was went like that for a few years, and then I think as I've gotten older, especially in my teens and 20s and 30s and that, it's really nice, at least I would say in the past maybe 15 years, Halloween in Australia is now starting to get more and more embraced.
Yes.
Like, yes, you'll find some people who say, oh, it's American holiday, we shouldn't be celebrating it. But then I just throw it back in the face and say, oh, well, technically it started off in Ireland, but,
It's technically Gaelic, and Australia likes to celebrate its Irishness, so you might as well just guess. Exactly.
I'm of the opinion, like, Australia will not... If Australia can't get drunk on that holiday, they won't celebrate it.
This is true. This is the same with New Zealand. If there is no alcohol involved, why are we doing this? And this is Halloween, because Halloween is all about the children going out and getting lollies. It's about dressing up. It's about watching scary movies. It's not necessarily drunk front and center.
Yeah.
And so there is a New Zealand Australian point of view of like, well, if I'm not getting drunk, what's the point? Like, yeah.
And again, I just throw it back in their faces. Like, do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day? And say, yeah, well, why not celebrate Halloween? Because technically we're not Irish. We don't have to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So.
Yeah, but you can get right roll drunk and it's okay on St. Patrick's Day.
But
it's accepted to be vomiting out in the street at 1 p.m. in the day.
Exactly. But like in the last 10 years in particular, like I'll go to the supermarkets and all that, and you'll always see Halloween decorations, or I even see a section where it's like pumpkins for sale, and they're like, Halloween pumpkins, get them to create your own jack-o'-lanterns and all that.
You do see more kids in groups going around at trick-or-treating, which is really cool. So, the spirit, and you see more decorations happening around houses. So it is definitely a thing that's starting to happen, which I think is really, really cool. But if I had tried to go trick-or-treating in my neighborhood as a kid, I was more likely someone to give me a joint than they were a lolly. So they would have just looked at me and gone... Actually, no, they wouldn't give me a joint because marijuana was very expensive. So it's not you're growing your own. But no, it is... Yeah, so... To have kind of newscasters dressed... The whole point of this was saying newscasters dressed up as a vampire and a witch giving very serious news was even still a weird thing for me to watch. I mean, I know there's the joke in Hubie Halloween where they're all dressed as Harley Quinn, which I still think is hilarious. I secretly like Hubie Halloween. I don't secretly, I just like that movie. And... Yeah, so to sort of see them talking about really serious news, and the witch's hat just keep bobbing up and down, I was just starting to giggle uncontrollably. The more serious the news got, I was just giggling.
I think that's kind of one of the funny things about the film is like sometimes they'll do serious stories throughout it, and then of course they are in their Halloween costumes and everything like that. And one of the ads that makes me laugh the most is and they play it twice during the film, is about the dentist who keeps telling people not to Halloween is
dentist's worst nightmare.
Yeah, Halloween is a dentist's worst nightmare, especially the next day. And then they organize like, we're going to do like this kind of candy drive. So instead of like eating your candy, you come by, give us your candy and we'll give you money for it. Yeah. And it's like, they're only like giving like a few dollars, and it's not like a lot of money. Like you can give them like a couple of pounds of lollies, but yet you're only going to get like maybe $2 out of them. I'm like, no. No, that is kind of why I think the dentist is involved. We'll be spoiling WNUF Halloween. We'll be spoiling the Halloween special. So there is a really great disc from Vinegar Streamer, and you can get to watch it if you want to watch this, but we will be spoiling it. Yeah, the dentist is absolutely on this plot to kill Frank and the people in the house. Because I was sort of watching the ads, and as someone who doesn't have a lot of ads now because
I just watch streaming, or whatever disc I've got in the house, I was actually wanting to fast forward some of the ads. I'm like, okay, ads. But then I started watching them and going, a lot of them are family-centered. I mean, they do get a little bit darker as the night goes on because it's obviously getting later, so they can have the strip club ad and all that kind of thing. But they do the ads really smart. And, yeah, they sort of start off as family-friendly, but they're very much about getting involved with kids. And this movie does have such a satanic panic thread running through it, which I was kind of like going, oh, I think I get it now. The ads are kind of reinforcing the different ideas toward Halloween, and also the fact that Halloween is not a good thing, from the dentist going, yes, you should be giving away your candy for $2. I'm like, no, I'm keeping my lollies. I'm keeping my chocolate. I'm not giving that up. And to the fact that you do have the news, which, by the way, I saw on Twitter, there was actually a news story from Texas about a woman saying she was not going to let her kids watch Hocus Pocus, because they have witches. And I'm just like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But that's just me, and I'm sorry if you don't like witches, but it's Hocus Pocus. Anyway, so that sentiment is still out there about Halloween and why people celebrate Halloween, and also with the exploitation of this real event, and the whole there's a lot to unpack with this movie, which is why I like it a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's just a very interesting film, and like you, I basically, I watch a lot of streaming these days. I rarely even watch normal television at all. And whenever the ads sort of pop up there, I did have that urge to kind of like fast forward them a little bit. Particularly, it did, even at some points in the film, and maybe this was by design of the filmmakers as well, is like sometimes when you go back to the actual live broadcast, like they literally are only on screen for 2 minutes, like, oh, we're back. Oh, well, you got to go to commercial break right now. And it's just like, oh, come on.
But that's what it used to be like. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky with the fact that the only thing I watch with ads is Tubi now. And sometimes I won't, well, I might cut that out. But my friend's Foxtel account, I have the password for. But it is, I don't watch ads. And you remember it got to a point where you would be watching a TV show or a movie, and within 10 minutes, you got another round of ads. It was getting to the point where you're watching more ads than TV. And yes, they were throwing to ads by toward the end because they were like, oh shit, this is a situation where we don't know what's happening. Go to commercial. But a lot of the time, it was just literally, okay, we've got ads paying for this, so let's go. I mean, some of the ads were fun. I do like the strip club one. I do like the dentist. I do like how whenever the joke of whenever the furniture guy came back up, the guy who was watching it would fast forward.
Yes. And also just like, I know for a fact that like a lot of these ads were specifically made for the film, and they actually had other people contribute ads to it. 10
other directors. So yeah, it was like it's almost like an anthology in that way.
Yeah, and also like all the ads are different. There's very rarely kind of show an ad twice. Like I think the dentist one is like one of the only few ads that they play twice.
And the furniture one, because that would be that guy who owns that furniture store paid for 3 ads to be played within 1 hour. So
exactly.
That's
and also the other ones, like, and also how authentically these ads are as well. Even though yes, they're more like local TV ads, but I remember even growing up in a small town, like even though we had the big major TV channels, but they always play ads that were local.
Yeah,
and a lot of them just felt very authentic to me, because they did remind me a lot of the ones that I grew up with, particularly like the sort of the truck ads, and also I love the ones where they would like show these kind of cheap TV shows or horror shows or movies that are going to play later on that night. And my favorite one, and I wish there was like a real movie of this, is a mummy film called Sarcophagus.
Yes, that looked amazing. Though the only thing is I wish they gave because there was a really good cop one called Chicago Fire, and I'm like, okay, if that was an actual ad, you'd have the cops speaking. Like you wouldn't just it'd be them, the guy. There's a few bits I love in it, but I'm like, oh no, they would be yelling something to. They would always show a little bit of the show, which is kind of the one thing that went, that's not quite authentic.
Yeah, well, some of it I know, like I said, were filmed, like actual film ones, and I think others kind of use archival footage as well of that period. And the movie kind of just does a good job. It's like you can't even tell the difference between what's fully like the ads that were fully filmed for, or ones that were kind of put together from archival footage. Like they do a good job. Like you can't even distinguish between any of the ads because they feel very authentic to each other.
No, you can't. And even the broadcasters. I mean, the one joke, I know it's a joke, but it kind of shows that how people sort of treat, again, a real horrific act is when they're talking about the kid who was shot by the guy with PTSD at the beginning and having the mother who's still grieving, and then whoever's watching it fast forwards. And it's like, oh...
I do remember that, yes.
It's a wrong joke because you have this very sweet, tiny Asian boy who's wearing his dad's fatigues for Halloween, and he knocks on the door of someone who's living in Vietnam, and I'm like, oh no, this joke. And then they fast forward it, and you're like, oh no. It just adds on the oh-nos.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing, though, because, like, out of all the ads, like, a lot of them, yeah, they're very authentic, but that's the one that very much sets up a very dark joke.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it definitely does draw attention to itself because it's obviously, like, it's so ridiculous of a news story that, I mean, yeah, it probably could happen in real life, but the way how it's presented is, like, you know that it's, like, an actual joke, but it's just so dark in how it's presented.
It's so dark in how it's presented, and I think it's a really good idea of what you're going to get into, because the newscasters do this as well. They talk to each other exactly how they would. Oh, like I love the last line of it's actually the end when they're not longer in their Halloween get-ups. It's just obviously 5 days later and goes, everyone thought this was a hoax and everyone laughed, but we're not laughing. I'm just like, holy shit. We still haven't found them. It's like, oh.
But I love the fact that, and again, we're probably have to spoil this film. Like throughout the entire film, like it does deal with, you know, the satanic panic that was happening at the time, and which I think is actually a great thing because they weave it in through a lot of the film
and a lot of the ads as well. Yeah, some of the ads I think are definitely in that, because I was sort of going, why are there so many ads about children in a news broadcast? I mean, this could be a cultural thing, because there was a lot of, I do remember ads like, come in, again, because we had local ads, and it was always someone trying to sell furniture or carpet, like so many carpeting ads in goddamn New Zealand. But it was also about, you come help tutor kids. And it was all these kind of things about adults spending time with children, and it felt kind of icky. But then when you realize it's about the satanic panic, and it was this kind of thing about protecting the children from all these horrible things that are happening. But when you look back, you realize, actually, no, it was all these programs that were set up designed to protect kids that were actually doing the most damage, because that's where the nasty people went. They weren't doing satanic things. They were literally in the calls coming from inside the house with this. It always is. It's not as much stranger danger as it is the person you know. And I thought that was a really nice commentary on how 80s, because in the 80s, it was so much about stranger danger.
Yeah.
That is what we got drilled into. I was very, very young in the 80s, so I'm more of a child of the 90s because that's when I was older. And I was wearing the cargo pants and I was kind of more involved with whatever culture was happening. But as a kid, it was DARE, which was the anti-drug thing that they did. And also it was Stranger Danger. And those things are so weaved in so well into the ads and into just to the people that they're talking to. And it's just all in the background. So you don't, when the ending happens, you don't see it coming that, oh, it's actually the people who say we must protect the children, and then they're the ones who are doing this horrific act. They're
the ones who end up being the perpetrators.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that was really, really smart. It was so well.
Yeah, it weaves it so well, and I actually, even though I'd seen this film before, I completely forgot the twist. And like, I honestly thought for a while, it's like, oh, they're setting up a lot of the satanic panic stuff. Like, oh, trying to remember the ending. Oh, maybe it had something to do with that, but no, it's like more of these kind of like almost like these kind of far right, you know, fundamentalist kind of Christian characters who are very much against Halloween. And they do a good job at setting them up through the film because, like, yeah, they pop up every now and again, like in a news bulletin or during a moment where Frank Stewart, who we'll have to talk about very soon.
But we're going to get into Frank.
He does, like, he's going to do a hotline and people talk and have questions about the house.
So my favorite part.
And every now and again, like, somebody was like, Halloween's an abomination. You're gonna
burn in hell.
And I believe that from what I remember, because that one of the people who did it at the end was in that news bulletin earlier, and also over the phone. So, like, again, it does a good job at setting up where you would think, oh, maybe it is this house is haunted or something like that, but then you find out that it's actually people doing it. You think, oh, it's a Satanists and stuff like that, but nope, it's these anti-Halloween people who are doing it, and it actually is a very smart and clever way to kind of pull the rug underneath and make that the twist of the film.
It really is, because you could easily forget that it isn't demons or it isn't a group of Satanists, that it is the fact that it's a group of very conservative, right-wing, anti-nationalist Christians, I guess is probably the word you call them now. And they're the ones who are doing this because they want it to stop. So they're going to try and say, oh, if you're going to go in a house mess with these elements that Frank obviously thinks is a joke. Like, he does not... Like, he's mocking everyone from... Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, the interviews outside the house are the best.
Paul Fahrenkopf, and again, if I butchered his name, please forgive me, as Frank, he steals the entire film because, like, he clearly, and he does this in a very beautifully subtle way, is like, he clearly does not want to be there.
No.
Like, he's definitely the reporter who always does all these specials for the news. Like, because I think, I'm trying to remember if this was in the actual film, or it might have been one of the special features on the Blu-ray, is that they have like a trailer for the Christmas special, and it has like Frank hosting a Christmas special, like a previous one from a previous year. So it's very clear, like, Frank is a guy who is the one reporter who is kind of forced to doing all these specials. And you can very much tell in a very subtle way that he has very much contempt for all of this and to the people around it, because he very slyly kind of mocks
by the end, he's outwardly just, the contempt on his face is just like, as soon as the priest reveals he's an actor, Frank just goes, "You worthless piece of ungrateful shit." It's just like, when he's interviewing people at the thing, is like, oh, have you oh my God, this one guy is like, it's like, yeah, we're at this house, we're on TV, it's really exciting. And this one guy, he goes, oh yeah, no, people died in this house. And he goes, this guy goes, looks at the camera, goes, wait, someone died? And the look on his face is so sweet because he didn't actually realize that this was a... But it is just those little jokes. It's like when he's going, oh, have you seen a ghost? Yeah, I know who I want to call. Who? Ghostbusters or something. Yeah. Like, he ruins people's jokes. He hates the fact, he has contempt for it, but he hates the fact that no one is taking this seriously. Like, that one girl goes, oh yeah, no, I believe in nice ghosts. Like when your grandmother dies and she comes back and goes, oh, was that what your mother told you? Like, did you also have a dog that was given away to a farm? No, yeah. I don't have a dog. It's just...
Like, he does it so well. Like, he is very charismatic as a TV host, but yeah, he is an absolute dick to everyone in the film. Not just like to the people who are out the front, like in the audience, but even like the people who are involved with this investigation as well. Like the Burgers, who are kind of like the Warren stand-ins for this film. Like, he very much is like, you guys are just kind of full of shit.
It's like, oh wait, you have a cat.
Oh, your cat can see ghosts? Okay.
Right. It's like, oh, so what do you feel when you're in here? Oh, I think it takes me a minute. And you just go, what do you mean it takes you a minute? No, you need to tell me now. I'm on camera. Like, you can tell he's the kind of the one who understands that he's live. Yeah. Well, his reaction to when his producer comes out in a mask and a chainsaw.
Yes.
It's brilliant. Like, he hates everyone around him. And I don't think he deserves what happens to him. But the fact that he was given, again, it's one of those kind of Wicker Man things. He was given so many warnings to get out of the house. The Burgers are telling him. The actor priest is telling him. The fact that the call-in seance doesn't go, which, by the way, really, you think that was going to work out?
One of my favorite things, and this is the only quote that's on IMDb, and it's from the seance scene, and it's one of the callers. And there's a lot of great caller moments in it. Like, one dude in particular, like, rings up and is like, yells like, I can't remember the band's name, but he's like, woo!
Metallica rules or something.
Metallica rules or something like that.
Yeah, but Pantera may be more likely, yeah.
Yeah, Pantera, yeah. And he's just and Frank is just getting annoyed with all these calls.
Please take this seriously. It's like, you're not taking this seriously, Frank.
And like, one of the calls like rings up, and I quote is, I was wondering if you can contact my dead grandmother and call her a bitch.
Yes, I wrote that down. it is absolutely wonderful. It's like, oh my God, the producers, no one is screening these calls at all.
That's kind of the funny thing when you compare it to Ghost Watch, when you see it, is like none of that type of stuff of like happens throughout the film because it's played it very straight.
Yeah.
But I imagine like if something like this was happening in real life, that is like an actual live broadcast. This is what would happen to Frank with all these people calling in, like mocking the whole situation, mocking him, mocking the guests, and just not taking any of the seriousness of what's happening in this house.
No, and it is actually really dark as to what's happening because as soon as they walk in, the burgers are like doing their thing. Like whether they are con men or not, you never really know because it's because the fact that there is no demons in the house or ghosts in the house leaves kind of everything kind of, and the fact that the priest is not a priest kind of questions everything about the falseness, which actually goes back to Resurrection because the fact that Nora and Buster Rhymes put everything in the house to kind of be fake, to try and get reactions out of the people who are walking around with those cameras on their head. And it's so it's sort of that kind of building up that kind of reaction. So, but when the cat goes missing and misses oh my God, the line, oh, can I call you whatever your first name is? No, you can call me Dr. Berger. Gil, can I call you Gil? No, you can call me Dr. Berger. I love that line so much. It's like, okay, Dr. Gil Berger. Like Frank is just like, I'm gonna be a dick no matter what.
Well, I like the fact that at least the burgers, again, like you say, we don't know if they're like legit demonologists or not, but I like the fact that at least the film, like, they obviously are kind of onto Frank being a dick to him.
Yeah.
Because they have their own method of working when it comes to the supernatural, and you got Frank here just like, oh, come on, hurry up, quick. It's like, this is not how it works.
Yeah, it's not how it works. And he's like, well, it needs to work this way because we're on TV and we're doing it live. And then the cat just runs up the stairs. You can tell Frank just does not care about that cat at all. It's like, oh, the cat ran away. Okay. He's trying to make it work for television, but there are moments where he's just like, I just don't care. Can we just get through this? And even when they're saying we should leave the house, Frank's going to go, no, we've got to stay. We'll go down to the basement. Yes, let's just go down to the basement in any haunted house. Just, yeah, sure, Frank, that's a great idea. But we'll go down to the basement and where the bodies were found, with this horrific murder that happened, and then we will kind of go from there. So every single time someone says, I want to leave, he's like, no, we have to stay. I've got to finish this tonight, and then we can all leave, and then we can get on with our night, but we have to do this thing correctly. And none of it goes right. I mean, I do love the thing when they hear the crash and during the seance when, can you please tell my grandmother she's a bitch, which I adore. It's such a great line. And then they find out that the burger's equipment has been broken, and then the cat has been torn apart. And you get this brief glimpse of, oh, there's the cat. No, don't show the cat. Like, because this is when Frank's going, okay, something's...
Yeah.
You're not sure he believes it quite yet.
Yeah.
Until he starts really insisting on the exorcism, even though it's not... Actually, do you think Frank thinks the house is haunted by the end, or do you think he just doesn't know what's happening?
I think that's one of the interesting things about the film is, like, obviously in the first half of this film, he's obviously like, whatever.
Yeah.
But then there is a point where you start to think, like, is he actually starting to believe this, or is he just playing along?
Yeah.
I honestly think with his interactions with the priest, who we find out in the film is an actor, I honestly think, like, he doesn't know that's a priest. I mean, like an actor, like because he keeps pestering him, like, oh, do an exorcist.
Do an exorcist. And the guy's going, oh, no, can't do an exorcist. And
like
he doesn't know how. Yeah.
Yeah, because like he's very much pestering him to do it. And I think if he knew that he was an actor, he probably wouldn't pester him as much as he does in the film. And then once he finds out, oh, I'm actually not a priest, I'm an actor, like you can definitely see how outraged he is.
Yes.
By the whole thing. And then not long after that, that's when he gets knocked out and later killed. So.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I was sort of wondering, is because he's just really pushing on the not priest to do an exorcism. You can see that there is evil in the house. This other guy's just like, I don't actually know what's happening. I'm as freaked out as much as you. And when he says, I'm an actor, he goes, oh, I don't know actually how to do an exorcism. And that's when it all kind of, well, you need to do one anyway. It's kind of like half of it still trying to go on with the show, and then kind of going, oh shit, what is actually happening?
Yeah, well, I like the fact with the priest character, like the way how he's handled until you find out the twist is like, oh, you should do an exorcism right now, and the priest is, and this is very accurate to what priests, when it comes to exorcisms, would do, is that, oh, well, we can't just perform an exorcism, we got to inform the Vatican, and then we got to get it approved, because at the end of the day, like, you know, people think, oh, they do exorcisms all the time, but a lot of the times, a lot of priests would actually try to find out if what is happening, in whether someone's possessed or if a house is, finding out if the person's either actually mentally ill and all that before they can do it, because they don't want the risk of doing something and then something bad happens.
Yes, which has happened in some cases.
Yeah, in cases.
But what you do find out when you're actually looking at it is, even when you watch The Conjuring, it hints at it, but it doesn't really go into it because the Warrens are superheroes. Yeah. There are a lot of priests involved. There's a hierarchy involved of actually what is considered an exorcism, what is or considered to need an exorcism, what is considered possession. And this has a definition that has changed. I think the Vatican still believes in demonic possessions because they're Catholic. I'm not entirely sure what the rule is.
Oh, yeah, well, they got their own little school.
I think exorcism. But it's kind of, but it is a very hierarchical thing, and it has to go up all the thing. You just can't. Yeah, so that, I do like how he says, well, I can't actually. So you can kind of tell that's a thing he's read to prepare for the role. And so he says that as his defense. And the guy's like, I'm not having this. You need to do one right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, because I don't know how to actually do one. I'm sorry, I'm an actor. I didn't read that far into the book. I obviously was reading about exorcisms.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's such an interesting little film, and especially where it takes a very much a dark turn in the last half, especially the end, because again we find out who the actual villains actually are, and I think the movie does do a good job at like setting itself up, because you do think maybe at first like maybe something supernatural is happening in this house, and then of course some other things happen that we find out it's actually these kind of anti-Halloween right-wing conservatives that are doing it. But then when we kind of see the little bit of footage later, that's very much shot by them.
Yes.
With Frank, who's almost dead. Then you have all the other people there, like the burgers, the camera, camera guys.
Yeah, no one left the house.
Yeah, but
I think it's the intern who went into the house.
Yeah, the intern
pushed into the house. He obviously did not want to be there.
Yeah, and also like the producer wasn't there because she wasn't inside when all this was happening. So like it kind of makes me think like that little segment, because it doesn't feel like. Is it almost like something? Because one of the things I love about this film, especially how they sort of promoted it, is like they actually legit put the film on videotapes and just scattered around different places, kind of like what they did with the Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
And people would watch it and they would think, oh, this is a real film. But I kind of think with that little segment, it kind of makes me wonder, though, is it like some random video that someone did tape? Because obviously it is taped off the TV, but was that little segment kind of taped? Because remember, video cameras back in the 80s, they actually used VHSs to record. So they didn't have the little small ones or anything like that. So it makes me wonder, though, like, was that VHS owned by the anti-Halloween people? That's
what I was sort of thinking, because you do see that segment of clearly what happened to these people, which clearly when you watch the next news footage, they don't know what they said. We still haven't found them yet. We have no idea what happened to these people. They're still missing.
Yeah, and the last bit when you find that little bit, that almost seems like they taped that almost as if that they want to hear more of the follow-up. What are people saying about this event? Yeah,
I think so. It's kind of like that serial killer mentality of taking the trophy. Yes, we're taking the original video that they were filming with, because we've got the intern, we've got the main cameraman, and we've got Frank. And then we'll just take this little thing of them sort of going, oh, what do you think of Halloween now, Frank, or whatever the thing is. And it is this really sort of fascinating way of, it's sort of like, okay, so who's watching this? I mean, I know I'm watching it, but there's someone else watching it as well, which is, I think they don't do enough in found footage, because found footage is like the Blair Witch Project. Here's a tape of something that happened, you make your own mind up. Yep. But this is actually, oh no, someone's actually else is watching, because you can see them fast forwarding. Yeah. Through segments. So things that they find kind of they don't want to watch or they don't think is important.
Yeah.
And then that little bit is at the end with Frank kind of getting the tape off and him asking why they're there, and they're just basically saying because we don't like Halloween or whatever. I can't remember exactly what they say. They're taunting him, and then you get the next one. I'm like, that's when I'm suddenly thinking, all right, who's actually watching? Someone else is watching this, but except I'm not the only one watching this right now. So it's a kind of another creepy element to add on there.
Yeah, like somebody's also watching it at the same time, and it makes you wonder, are the perpetrators also watching it? But I have a feeling it's somebody who may have stumbled on the tape.
Yeah.
And like maybe that was owned by the perpetrators, and they're just watching it, hence why during certain bits they do fast forward. I love the fact that during one of the fast forward bits there was like in the news segment they're talking to a police officer about Halloween safety.
Yes, yeah, you're right, yeah.
And they're very obviously like, this guy's like raving on the crap, let's just fast forward through this one segment. So it's very obviously like somebody who's just watching it, like going through the ads and all that. And also kind of like the poster for this film is interesting too, because it's a kid watching the tape. Yeah. So it makes me wonder, it's like, I wonder if that's also an added element where it's like maybe some random kid found this tape, watching it on Halloween night, and then discovers like all this stuff that's on the tape, and maybe the reason that footage is on there is because he knows the perpetrators or something like that, or maybe it was taped from somewhere else. Like, there's a lot of interesting kind of questions that this film asks at the end of it.
It really does, because you don't know. Yeah, there's so many questions about it that I think is really, really fascinating, because a lot of found footage movies are very cut and dry in terms of, here's a tape that was found, you watch it now, you see what their last moments were like, which is a typical kind of way of doing. I mean, there are some elements like Mungo, which kind of completely breaks that format and does something really, really interesting with it. That's the usual kind of, because everyone copied Blair Witch after Blair Witch. But this one, yeah, there's something about it that feels very unsettling because of that element of who's fast forwarding what and why.
Yeah.
And the places they're choosing to fast forward, whether they think the cop rambling on is boring, whether they've seen the ad with the furniture. So it's kind of this, and it makes me think that it'd be interesting to find that they must have planned this out before they were even shot it. Okay, we're going to have these moments of fast forwarding. And it kind of shows how intricate this movie is. I mean, you have to get the ads timed right. Yes, I was getting a bit annoyed until I realized, hang a moment, I think they're trying to tell me something. There's something to these ads.
Yeah, I think when you kind of watch the film and know exactly where it goes in the end, and when you go back and rewatch it, I think all the clues of like where this film is going to in the end are within the ads that they're showing.
Yeah. It's all about the sort of community and sin versus purity a lot of the time. Like that ad about, do you know what games your kids are playing? And they're playing Spin the Bottle. And it's all these like 20-year-olds pretending to be 14.
I do remember that ad. Yeah, again, doing like some of the scare ads that were on at the time.
Yeah, exactly. I remember a big one of like, you know, make sure you know who kids are talking to on the street. And also kind of, actually no, New Zealand had no anti-alcohol ads because that's all New Zealanders do is drink. So it's like, similar with Australia, I'd assume. It's like they try and do anti-alcohol ones, they're just like, nah, mate.
It's just a really fun movie, and I think it is a perfect film to watch on Halloween because, again, it has that kind of nostalgic feel where you're like, I mean, even growing up as a kid, like what I used to kind of tape a lot of Halloween shows and episodes and stuff like that. So, and I mean, when I used to tape things late at night, like where I'm in bed, I would set my tape timer to tape something at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and of course they would have the ads and all that still in, and watching this film kind of brings back all those type of memories for me.
It does. Everyone who was alive in the 80s and early 90s, or even late 90s, because we still had VCR for ages, you used to put the timer on. You had to go out with whatever event, or you'd put the timer on if you had to go to bed for whatever thing you wanted to watch. You'd get up and you'd have the ads. Now, I was always a fast forwarder through the ads because I'd already seen these ads a million times. I didn't need to go back and visit them. But yeah, that was kind of a thing that you did. It kind of brings back that feeling of, oh, this is something I watched, and you get all the ads, and Yeah, no, it's got a very nostalgic thing. Even if I didn't have that thing for the Halloween kind of special as a kid, I still remember taping everything else off the TV.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it very much embraces Halloween. And I love the fact that, like when I watch something like this, like that goes all out in Halloween, and it also kind of shows like somewhere in America, like Halloween is such a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like not only, news broadcasters will dress up as, characters and stuff like that, but the ads themselves will always have a Halloween feel to them.
No, it shows kind of why people celebrate Halloween, even though you have this force that is trying to stop it. They're going out of their way because they purposely, you can tell they're maybe the people that are putting on the "Do you know what your children are playing? Let's have all the children's thing kind of mixed in with all the Halloween stuff." But you can kind of tell why Halloween's so important to them, because it's kind of the release of having fun with the spooky, having fun with what scares you. It is about kind of the joy of it all. Of people go to, I know in America people go to haunted haunts all the time. Something I couldn't do. If people were jumping out at me and touching me, I'd be like, no. So I don't know if I'd want to go to one of those things. I haven't. I don't know. I've been to an escape room in Australia, and I have, but it is, and even that, I was like, I'm not having that much fun. You're telling me I have to figure out a clue to get out of here? Nah, what? But it is, but it kind of captures that fun of that spookiness of that, why you celebrate Halloween to begin with. And I think it really does capture that, even if Frank is being the biggest dick on the planet and doesn't believe in any of it, there's still, those people out there are all dressed up and having fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I also love the fact that, again, it's one of my favorite tropes in any horror film when you have a character who is kind of disbelieving or is very dismissive of any kind of supernatural or very horrific things are happening. But then during the course of the story, they start to believe in all this stuff. And that's always kind of like always a fun thing to do. And especially with the character of Frank and like how much of a dick he is in the first half until he realizes like, oh no, shit is really going down at the moment. Like this may actually be real, what's happening.
Yeah, especially when he's locked in the basement. That's when the fear really becomes palatable. Like you can really kind of see him go, oh no, things are really going to crap now, I can't get out. And the Bridges is, get out of there. It's like, I can't.
But even then, like the film, like even though it is a comedy, like it does have moments where you do feel like the horror does creep in. Like because again, it goes for that authentic feel. And like something like Ghost Watch or the Blair Witch Project, since it's shot in a very real way, you can't help but feel that sort of the terror, what's going on screen. And even though, WNUF has a lot of jokes sprinkled throughout all these scenes, but the way how it's sort of presented, like you are almost a little bit on edge at the same time, though, because again, you're not sure exactly where this story is going to go.
Yeah, exactly. And because the actual threat is kind of just woven into the background, you do easily forget about them because they're just part of the insanity or kind of the messiness that's happening in the ads. And in all the different segments, you don't think that they're the ones who are going to come back and go and kill everyone.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, like, even though I'd seen this movie before, I completely forgot about that twist ending. Honestly, for a while there during this film, because they always were talking about, the murder that happened in the house, which is obviously inspired by the DeFeo murders in Amityville.
Yes.
Like, I honestly thought, I was like trying to remember what happened at the end while watching it. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, was it that I know they got murdered in the air, like Frank and all them. Was it the son of the people of the couple who got murdered and he broke out? But then they say, oh yeah, he got executed. I'm like, oh well, there goes that theory out.
Yeah.
Although I know somebody got murdered, but I keep forgetting who did the murder.
Which is a sign of a good movie, because I think this is a lot clever than you'd think because it's all very grainy and it's very hard to see things.
Yeah.
Which again takes me back to my childhood, and then I realize, oh, I have things on 4K now and I can see, this movie, I don't know how good it would be perfect. Like if you're watching it in HD, I like the graininess of it. I like the fact you can't see people's eyes.
Like the fact that I have a Blu-ray of this movie is kind of wild to me. Like, see a movie like this, which is very grainy, goes for that VHS aesthetic, like, and not just the aesthetic, but the fact that it's like been watched so many times that it's starting to kind of fade and kind of wear itself a little bit. It's weird just watching a film that's presented like that on 1080p Blu-ray.
It's like, hang on, it should be crisp. Oh wait, it does take you a minute to go, oh, okay, this is what it's meant to be like. It's like the first time I saw 28 Days, I thought the thing I was streaming it on was broken. Something was wrong with my TV because I'm like, why does this look like shit? Oh no, wait, because it's filmed in like 16 millimeter or something to look like 16 millimeter. It's not meant to be this beautiful crisp kind of thing. Danny Boyd was doing a thing. And sometimes you do have to get your head around the fact of like, yeah, we used to watch things like that with that grainy. That was just normal. And it is, but it kind of adds to the whole atmosphere. It really does. It really adds to the whole atmosphere of the movie.
Oh yeah, and then kind of watching a lot of films, like as much as I love seeing like all the films I have on Blu-ray or on 4K, especially older horror films and stuff like that. But there is a very nostalgic feel when you kind of watch something that looks like it was taped off a TV or it's from a beaten VHS. The kind of that sort of visual quality, it does take me back a little bit, and it's always just fun to see.
No, I still think Blood Rage actually looks better when it's a little grainy, not absolutely perfect like my Arrow Blu-ray. It's been a clean.
They should have every Blu-ray should come with a function that you can watch the film in a very grainy look.
Yes, I would go, if this was grainy, I think this would be a masterpiece because at the moment, it's too crisp and too clean for what is happening in this movie.
Exactly.
But yeah, again, it goes back to the 80s nostalgia, and I'm not often nostalgic for the 80s because I was still, I was born very in the early 80s, but I was a kid for most of it. My cultural touch points are Garbage Pail Kids and 80s soap operas and Barbie dolls and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were kind of whatever toys I was playing with. They're not this kind of broadcast, that kind of thing. That happens more in the 90s for me when I'm much more older and can then explore the world a little bit more. So actually getting nostalgic for this kind of the 80s, I was like a little bit surprised for. So I think the movie does a very good job in that.
Yeah, for sure. And I was born in the 80s as well, but I kind of just grew through the 90s. But even then, I still saw similar things like, how the broadcast and also the ads and everything like that, even in the 90s compared to like the 80s, like in how it's presented. But no, it's just a really kind of just nostalgic feeling for me to watch in the show. And I'm kind of a person who's kind of slightly burned out by 80s nostalgia at the moment. Not just like, I love 80s stuff, don't get me wrong, but just more of that 80s aesthetic of everything.
Yes.
Like most of the time I feel like it does get a little too much because like if you were actually living in the 80s, like all the references and like people's items around houses wouldn't be as overt as they would be in a lot of films.
Yeah, it's like
today.
when Stranger Things had, like in the first season, had a poster of The Thing, and I'm like going, that movie bombed so hard you would not have a poster of The Thing in your bedroom right now. You would have something else. So I think a lot of the 80s nostalgia is about
the aesthetic,
and what we have taken from the 80s, not what people were in the 80s were taking from the time that they were living in. And I think this is a movie that looks at what actually people were taking in from the 80s. Like everyone's got those real pedophile. What is with those they're coming back? It's annoying me. Those those wide rim glasses that look like, I call them Coronation Street glasses or pedophile glasses.
Yes.
Everyone's wearing those. Everyone is wearing god-awful jerseys. Everyone's, it doesn't feel stylish 80s. It feels actual 80s.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think in a film like this, it does work because the aesthetic of it visually is very much 80s. But everything else that happens in the film, like the costumes and the sets and stuff like that, they do feel appropriate. Like they don't feel overtly 80s in of themselves.
Yes.
It's just more the aesthetic that's more homaging the 80s.
That's it. That's what I was trying to say. Like it's not a, hey, look at the 80s, we're so cool. And yes, so many great movies came out of the 80s. But yeah, this feels the 80s because of the aesthetic and the fact that if you're watching a VHS, you've watched thousands and thousands of times, it's going to look that grainy. Like how the eyes kind of look the pupils kind of look like they're sinking down on the cheek sometimes. It's a really cool effect, and that's just what happens when you just get a really grainy, breaking apart video.
Yes. Although I have to say at the end of the day, I really need that sarcophagus movie to happen. And it's funny, though, because I forgot that ad was in the movie. And I think literally a few days before, I think I tweeted this out, at least at the time when I was about to rewatch this film and prep for this show, is I wish we had some I would love to see serious, scary mummy movies.
We don't get those. Again. Yeah.
Yeah, because we get a lot of other genre films like vampires or werewolves and, aliens and stuff like that. But we haven't had a good, scary mummy movie in ages. Not that I'm talking down the Brendan Fraser mummy movies and stuff like that.
No, because those are awesome.
those films are awesome, and I really much enjoy them. But a lot of the mummy movies these days kind of go for that, again, the action kind of adventure feel, but an actual serious kind of horror mummy movie,
like the segment in Tales of the Dark?
Tales of the Dark Side. Yes, that's what
Tales of the Dark Side. That mummy segment is amazing, and we should have more of those.
Yeah, and I'm just watching that sarcophagus ad, and I'm thinking that would be kind of a really cool thing to see. Okay,
we'll get this done. We're gonna make sarcophagus into a movie. Let's make it happen. Anything else you want to say about the Halloween special before we?
I would definitely say, if people are looking for some added viewing for their 31 Days of Horror, or just something to watch specifically on Halloween night, definitely throw the WNUF Halloween special on the list, because again, it's a film that's all about Halloween. It shows its love for Halloween.
Oh yeah,
it's very funny. It's very satirical. And it's also got some genuinely creepy moments in it as well. And it's just good Halloween viewing for anyone who wants more Halloween stuff. Because I always, on my last day of 31 Days of Horror, I always make sure the films I watch are at least centered around Halloween, because it just adds more to the day. And if people kind of like to do that as well, definitely do that and add this film to your list.
This movie actually really surprised me of how it treated the story, and where it went, which I was not expecting from this. I think I was expecting more of. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this movie. So thank you so much for suggesting this. This is going to be this was an absolute blast. We're going to be doing this very soon again, actually, in early November. I think I've got to actually set a date for that, for you and Marcy coming back from an Alien double, which I'm very looking forward to.
And the only thing I can say about that double, because we won't reveal what the films are yet, people are not going to expect what the double is in terms of the films we've chosen, and the common link we have between the two films as well.
I only know one of the common links, because I haven't actually seen any of these movies. I own the discs now.
Yes.
Bede kindly reminded me during one of the DVD Blu-ray sales to go, you make sure you pick up this. I'm like, oh, yes, okay, I have it now.
They deal with aliens, they deal with a certain actor, but they're completely the opposite spectrum in how they approach aliens in their story.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. Before we go, please tell people where they can find your good work.
Alrighty, if people want to find all the podcasts I co-host on the Super Network with Super Marcy, they can find the Super Podcast, Podcasters of Horror, the To Be Tuesdays podcast, and as well as the King Zone and the Ozploitcast over at supermarcy.com. But you can find all of our shows on all podcast streaming services everywhere, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the rest. So they're all easy to find, and they even have their own little feeds as well. And also you can find all my personal writing and other works over at supermarcy.com as well. And you can also find me at Twitter at twitter.com/Bede Jermyn. That's BEDEJERMYN. And also you can follow the official Twitter account for my upcoming show, Bede versus the Living Dead, at Bede vs TLD on Twitter. And the first episode of that will be launching on October 30th. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, I'm really looking forward to the first episode of Bede versus the Living Dead. This is going to be a fascinating project. Thank you again so much for coming. This was actually... Sorry, I bitched a lot about Resurrection. Yes. I do think that's definitely doing a thing. I just want you to do more. Resurrection, be better. But no,
exactly.
It's always a great time hanging out, and I cannot wait to hang out again.
Oh yeah, for sure. I look forward to coming back on the next on the future episode that we've talked about, and because I know we're going to have a lot to talk about with those two movies.
Oh, I think we are. We think we're definitely going to have a lot to talk about. We. Oh my. No, we've got next time we've got Rob Zombie coming up. I recorded that a long time ago, so I keep forgetting that that's coming up. So next episode is going to be the Rob Zombie Halloween 2. And then we're going to be finishing off with, hopefully if everything comes together, it'll be the David Got a Green Halloween party. But yeah, you can follow Schlock and Awe 1 on Instagram and Twitter, and me at Reading Geek, just on Twitter. We're on all the pods. Thank you so much for listening. This series has been really, really fun. Halloween has opened up in so many interesting ways that I never thought it would. And yeah, we will be back with Rob Zombie. All right, thanks guys. Bye.
Bye.